T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world, episode 511. All in the Treat Tuesdays. Dr. Warren Booth makes his return. What is good, everyone? I'm your boy, MJ. Happy Tuesday, man. I'm so excited for tonight's episode. But listen, if this is your first time hanging out, if you're into emerald tree boas, a boreal species of reptiles, man, this is the podcast to be subscribed to. All right. So first and foremost, if you're an emerald tree boa fan, hit the like button right now. Why don't we do that right now? It's a free feature. It doesn't cost you anything. Likes up. And then if you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, select all, you'll be reminded of every podcast release out of the Trap Talk Reptile Network 6 days a week. Mind you, after tonight, I am taking a 2-week break. All right. I have Trap Fest this week. All right. I have a Reptile Super Show that's going down. And I have other ideas that I want to roll out. So I kind of just need to take a breather. All right. You guys know I earned that, right? And so do my other co-hosts and hosts of other segments happening here at the Trap Talk Network. But listen, you can listen to any episode from Trap Talk Reptile Network on all the major audio platforms. So if you're more of an audio guy, there's Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. So you can enjoy all these episodes on there as well. Wherever you listen to Trap Talk Reptile Network, thank you so much. Really means a lot. Really does. So shout out to all the early birds. If you're looking for exclusive content, if you want to get invited to special events, please do me a favor. Come join the Trap Talk Patreon family. All right. Come join the trappers. Come meet over 200 amazing reptile keepers. First link in description below. If you click on that link, join the Trap Talk Patreon family. You get a link to the Discord that will tap you with over 200 plus amazing reptile keepers. All right. We have an awesome group chat on Instagram. We have an amazing Discord. Just such a good way to market and connect yourself with the right people who have basically have longevity involved with their brand and everything else, right? Because we're all here for the long run. My Patreon members, you guys are my heart. Love you guys. Cannot wait to see so many of you Thursday. All right. Trap Fest is going to be one for the books this year. Who's here, man? Who's ready to rock and roll? I'm very excited, like I said, for tonight's guest. Nick, the Reptile Pueblo in the building. What is good? Alex Oliver in the building. What is up? Big Mike, 1776 Exotics, Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Simon in the building. What's up, Simon? Uncle Mike's in the building. And if you want to talk about why I'm not surprised Uncle Mike's here, everyone knows Uncle Mike's all about the monitors. He's legendary for monitors this, monitor that. Well, guess what? You could add emerald tree boas, northern emerald tree boas, to this man's breeding resume. And just so proud of this guy. He did it his way. Obviously he had mentorship, but Mike, proud of you. Thanks for being here tonight. Please go give him a follow. He's also one of the hosts of Saturdays All Monitor Talk. All right, he's killing it with Jim Black. So thank you so much, Uncle Mike. Appreciate your support. Thank you, Josh, Scale Fins and Feathers, Trap Talk Patreon member, and I'll see you this Thursday. Shout out to Tony, Revision Reptiles in the building. Tony, are you coming to Trap Fest? You're more than welcome to come with Brandon Wheeler. Please roll up. Father Blue, our father in the building. It's our father. Hey, by the way, Eddie, looking at your 2 productions, they are doing very, very well. Actually, one of them took a day-old mouse pink. Super excited about that. But shout out to Father Blues. Please give him a follow. PJ's Creations in the building. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. JD in the building. What is up? Big E Top G Villarino. Somebody also pulling up to Trap Fest. Flies in tomorrow with his wife. I cannot wait. And we're going to end things with Big E Top G because he's the big dog right now. You feel me in the chats? No one's bigger than Big E in the chats right now. I'm just saying. Listen. Guys, if you're in the chat tonight, you think tonight's episode's worth of any super chat, don't be shy. Drop a super chat, all right? And then also make sure you are supporting US Art. Very important. Second link in description below. You click on usart.org and become a member today, all right? Don't wait. Just do it. Become a member. Get the numbers up. Let's help fight these people who want to keep trying to take our animals, first and foremost. Not a good thing, all right? So if you're a reptile keeper, this is important to be a part of. Be a part of the US Art fight. Thank you so much, Phil Goss, Vanessa, anyone associated to US Art. And appreciate you if you are a US ARC member. Thank you so much. Very honored and thankful for tonight's sponsor, which, like I already mentioned, the Reptile Super Show, #1 show in the country, going down this weekend. It's already here, the LA Pet Fair, 3 shows in 1. All right, you have birds, aquatics, the reptiles, and then you have, of course, the plants that are going to be outside. This is going to be huge. All right, thank you, Rami. Thank you, anybody out there working with Reptile Super Show and a part of this LA Pet Fair. It's going to be big. It's going to be huge. And you could catch the trap booth Saturday. All right. I'm going to be doing interviews and whatnot. It's going to be a good time. So many heavy hitters are going to be kicking at my booth. So if you want to see these heavy hitters, make sure you stop by the trap booth, all right, at the Reptile Super Show building, and it's going to go down. Thank you, Rami. I appreciate everything that you do, Rami. Seriously, you do such a great thing for the hobby by throwing these shows, and I cannot wait. Go to reptilesupershow.com and also follow Reptile Super Show Instagram for all updates, and get your tickets at reptilesupershow.com as well, all right? Tonight's episode is brought to you also by Gary Shavino, GS Reptiles. If you want to talk about arboreals and having fun, this is your guy to follow. So many levels of respect when it comes to keeping arboreal species from this guy, and all you have to do is follow his YouTube channel, okay? GS Reptiles on YouTube. By far one of my favorite vlogs to watch whenever he does drop his vlogs. And I don't mean to say that to try to get him give him shit. I know he does a lot, but if in a perfect world, I would have a weekly vlog from Gary. Just saying. I don't mean to be a dick. Sorry, Gary. Do your thing. Drop it when you want to drop. But I'm just saying, guys, if you go subscribe to his YouTube channel, it's content you don't want to miss. All right. So Gary Shavino, GS Reptiles, that's my dog. Also very proud to say that tonight's episode is brought to you by Sundown Reptiles. That is Brian Susan, repping it hard when it comes to the high-end geckos, when it comes to tree monitors, when it comes to abronia. No one's doing it like this guy. Plain and simple, all right? Congratulations also, Brian, on the success with tree monitors. This guy's hatching out tree monitors, it feels like, every day, all right? And tree monitors are blowing up. They're getting big. I'm telling you right now, get on this tree monitor train if you have, obviously, the space and everything. Do your homework. Do your homework. When you do your homework, go to Sundown Reptiles, pick up your tree monitor or your high-end gecko, whatever, but get it from Brian Susan, all right? You can find the links to all my sponsors in the description below. And thank you to all my sponsors out there. And thank you to anyone who supports my sponsors. And thank you to anyone who supports this bum who doesn't come to sound check at all anymore. Dude.
What's up?
What's up, bro?
What's happening? I was here. I was like 3 minutes early.
You came in right when it clocked at 0. And I'm like, this guy, dude, that's like straight up. But no, you got in. I'm glad. But dude, how do you feel, man? You're taking off to San Diego in about a couple days.
Yeah, Thursday morning. I'm freaking pumped. Can't wait. It's going to be a nice, like 20 degrees cooler.
Yeah,
there than it is here.
We had a few hot days. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of worried, and then I just kept checking the weather because it'll tell you one thing sometimes, and it'll just switch like the next week. But it looks like it's gonna be pretty decently like mild down here. It looks like in my area it's gonna be about 79, 78, and even cooler in the coast. So yeah, man, you're coming on a perfect time. I got to tell you.
Yeah, and I'm psyched. Nice, cool night. Never been to San Diego before, so
oh yeah,
pump for the show. I saw there's an aquarium show right next door.
Yep, plants, there's a bunch of stuff, bro. I can't wait.
It's gonna be sick.
No, let's ask him. Ryan, are you pumped up?
Oh yeah, no, I can't wait to come. It'll be fun.
Look at him, can't you tell?
Oh man, I think all he thinks about is magic geckos. I swear to God.
Hey man, if we saw one of those, hey, hats off. That'd make the trip.
Okay, I gotta tell. We gotta make a promise, Ryan. If we find a magic gecko, you have to promise to come to every trap fest. That's like.
Okay.
You'd have to commit for the rest of your life.
Sure, I'm down.
No, I'm really excited to hang out with you guys. It's going to be quite the time, and I feel like since I'm taking a 2-week break, what an episode to have tonight, right? Warren Booth, obviously, really needs no introduction. I know Marshall. I think we've done an episode with Warren before, right? You and I and him, haven't we? Or was that with Chris Rice? I think.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think I've met Warren.
Wait, you've never met Warren?
I don't think so.
What?
Maybe at like a show in passing, but I don't think we've ever really talked a whole bunch.
I feel like you're fucking with me right now. Are you serious?
No, seriously.
Okay, right.
And obviously, I've heard his name a million times.
What the fuck? I feel like I'm taking fucking crazy pills right now. Are you serious?
Yeah, 100%.
All right. What about you, Ryan? Do you know Warren Booth? Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I've hung out with him in person.
He's a bit, that's one thing about Warren, right? Like, even if you never met the guy, you have respect for everything he does with the reptiles. But when you meet him, it's a whole nother level. I got to tell you, I love hanging out with Warren, even though it's been a long time. Warren's a whole different person as far as like connecting with him in person. You know what I mean? So it's going to be an awesome episode tonight. We're going to be covering a lot of emerald tree boas, and congratulations on getting your recent success with Northern emerald tree boas. Ryan, that was like a week ago they came out?
Just a couple days ago.
Oh shit! How many did you get? 2?
4.
4? Cool. And I'm curious. Before we kind of get Warren into here, I'm gonna ask you how that went. You feel like overall, like, do you feel like the female recovered or looks okay? And was there a lot of slugs? Not really. Like, what was the overall assessment from what you've seen?
No, she did great. There was 2 slugs. One was real big and one was small, and then the 4 babies. And she ate yesterday, so
Okay.
she didn't even look. She never, her head never really even shrunk in. She didn't really look too bad.
She a big girl?
No, she was like 911 grams after laying.
Damn.
Okay.
I've never weighed. Have you ever weighed your emerald? Yeah, I'm too scared to. Not that
I only weighed it for science purposes, but
I
not
mean,
that I'm not.
I get it. All right. Well, listen. Obviously Warren Booth has had success. I know Anaconda phases he's done, and Northerns he's done.
All kinds of stuff, man. I was checking out his Instagram today. All kind of cool locality boas and
Boas is his thing. Like, we're gonna be talking about a lot of boas, but boas is that's what floats Warren's boat for sure. So great episode tonight, and we're taking advantage with Bill not being here. He's in fucking Scotland or whatever, fucking hanging out with bald eagles or some shit. I don't know what he's doing in Scotland, but God bless him. Have a good night, because tonight it's all about the Emerald Tree boas. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to bring Warren Booth in. You guys ready to bring the doctor in?
Let's go.
All right, let's do it, guys. It's that time. Do what you got to do to get your mind right. Do what you got to do to stay hydrated. Episode 511. Dr. Warren Booth coming at you right now. Let's go. Cheers.
Good.
You ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man.
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes.
Exclusive. Oh.
So stop calling us.
Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crowd, God love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up.
Wow, I forgot to put myself in. That's crazy. Episode 511. We're live with Warren Booth. What's up?
What's up, Warren?
Oh, he's muted. Wait, we're all fucking up tonight. Unmute yourself, Warren.
He
There
looks
you
like he's in some Middle Eastern prison camp or something.
That's exactly where I am. It's my office. So I've been here all day. So yeah. How are you doing, folks? How's everyone?
go. Good to see you. Can you
Good.
please
I'm
answer
great.
this? Is Marshall full of shit? Does he really not know who you are?
That's not what I said.
I've never met Marshall.
Wow. This is why I feel honored now. Now this is
I know.
like a huge connection right here. So Marshall, Warren, Marshall.
Hi,
Nice
Marshall.
to meet you, man.
I'm looking up. Hold on. Let me look up to the top corner. There you go. Excellent. Very good. And this guy beside me,
Oh, man, that's trouble right there.
I love this guy.
But good to have you back, Warren. What's going on, man? I know there's been quite a bit of changes over the last year or so with you moving and a bunch of adjustments. I know breeding, last time I talked to you, you weren't really too sure as far as what was going to go and whatnot. So let's get right to it. How's everything going?
It's great. Everything is we're kind of settled. We've been here in the new house a year in 2 weeks' time. So it doesn't feel like a year, but a year in 2 weeks' time.
Where do you live?
Blacksburg, Virginia. So
Okay.
before that, we lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we were there for about 11 years. But I spent 6 months between January 1st of last year and July, every 2 weeks driving back and forth between Tulsa and Blacksburg, which is about 1,000 miles.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Rough.
So all my
Sounds rough.
snakes, all my snakes were with a friend in Knoxville, which is on the way, which is good. But we've been here about a year, so everything's settled in. So kind of the first breeding season in the new place, we've had some children's pythons, some spotted pythons.
Nice.
And then just a couple of days ago, I had a litter of Brazilian rainbow boas. And then I got 3 or 4 litters of boas due between probably the next couple of days and about a month from now. So
did everything skip a beat with the move, or is that pretty much what you would have produced had you not moved?
I think I produced more than I normally would.
Wow.
Because what happened was, for 6 months, whenever the snakes were with a friend, they were fed really sparsely. Every month, every 6 weeks, maybe every 2 months. And then once I got them back here, I'd pump them full of food because they'd been 6 months without food, and that instantly, puts everything into that kind of breeding mode, and everything kind of kicked in. There was a couple of snakes I missed out on, but everything I put together pretty much bred. I didn't put any. Well, I put one pair of emeralds together, but they didn't do anything because they're just old and stupid. But everything else that I put together kind of bred. So.
Wow.
To the point that I regretted putting so many things together, because I thought, do I have enough space for babies, and do I have enough time to take care of these?
Yeah.
But so far everything's good, So
yeah. So you're happy overall as far as what's acclimated at the new place, and
yeah, very much so.
Okay.
Yeah, very much so. So I think I think I sent you a picture, and Ryan, a couple of days ago. I got a bunch of
Cages.
additional PVC cages.com cages. A friend of mine gave me 7 of those that I picked up in South Carolina on the way back from vacation. So
nice.
I was just finished putting new lights into those today. So that provides another wall of arboreals for the annulated tree boas and the hybrids and stuff like that there.
Yeah.
Now,
go ahead,
did you produce those hybrids? I was looking at them on your Instagram.
No, I didn't. They were produced in a shop in Las Vegas, and they bought a emerald, and within a month they realized it was gravid and it gave birth, and they posted pictures on Instagram or Facebook. But there was a small litter, maybe 7 babies, but there were 3 or 4 emeralds and 2 or 3 hybrids. And I've owned hybrids in the past, and they've never done well. They've all died within a really short period of time, and if you look at the history of the hybrids, they've never really done well.
Yeah, no one's bred them. We produced F2 generation, right?
Yeah, like John Martin produced 2 litters in captivity, and he never got them to breed and so on. But they posted one of them on kingsnake.com for like $800, and I thought, it's kind of cool looking, but I'll just get it for a desk pet, and that's what I did. And it's now, I think it's now maybe 3.5 years old. And it went from being brown to it's blue and kind of bluish gray and cream colored, and it's great. It's eating small rats, and it's thriving. It's not doing it's not undergoing any of the issues that I'd seen with the ones in the past. But then whenever I go back and I researched a lot of the issues with the ones in the past, they were never kept in optimal conditions. Some of them originally, like Stan Shearer's ones, that originally were kept outside, and apparently they were pretty horrible.
I'm sorry, Mark. Warren, we're talking about this snake, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So she's about 4, maybe 4.5 feet. Eats small rats. But she was born. She was like brown, kind of muddy colored. So what I plan to do is one of those, with kids, you've got your children, and there's like a picture every month. I'm going to post a picture of every shed to show the whole color transition of going from brown to the color that she's went, because she's really cool.
I mean, aren't designers too? I don't understand. What's the problem here? I think Ryan needs to just take a deep breath.
Ryan's like, can we change the subject?
We gotta stop using the term designer and do the right thing and call them hybrids.
I wish we could see.
That's exactly what it is.
I wish we could see Ryan's knee right now. I guarantee it's like this.
Oh shit!
She's like, son of a bitch. This is driving me nuts.
They're cool. Like, would I would I do it myself? Yes, absolutely, entirely. Yes, I would. But more for the kind of interest of how they turn out, and whether the fact that they haven't bred is just due to the difficulty of breeding Corrales, or whether they are truly sterile. So, but if anybody should breed them, it should have been John Martin. John Martin was really good at breeding Corrales, and he couldn't do it. And his were all, he told me that he had trouble with respiratory illnesses and shedding issues. And Danny Mendez had a bunch of them, and he told me the same thing.
Interesting.
So, but mine so far is great, and I know that Dayton Croydon's apparently is doing well as well. His is a sibling to mine.
Okay.
There's no hybrid figure, huh?
Well, there's no problem with it. So there's no hybrid weakness in this case, So but it's certainly not some kind of monster that's being produced from it that's growing bigger or anything. It's about the size of an Amazon that I would expect. It's not the girth of an emerald, but I do see it kind of starting to fill out a bit. So we'll see how it goes. But again, remember over the last year and a half, I haven't really pushed it much because I didn't feed it a lot. So now that I'm feeding it more regularly, it is starting to put on a little bit more weight and stuff. So we'll see in about a year and a half, 2 years time, we'll see how it looks. If it's still alive, it could drop dead tomorrow, but we'll see.
Well, as long as you breed it to an annulate, it will be good.
That's the plan. Or a Trinidad Trebo. My plan is a Trinidad Ruschenberger. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to go really rare.
Well, you know that lone male Cropana you have would work too.
He would do. He'd be a great one for that. Yeah.
What's the deal with your annulateds this year? Did you pair any of them up? No.
I would love to. I don't have a male. My male decided to roll over. My male decided to roll over and fall asleep and never wake up. So
that's what mine did.
But I've got another one coming. So maybe next year. Yeah.
And how old was that male, if you don't mind me asking? Like, did he tire some litters for you?
No, not at all. He was like 3.5, 4. And just the perfect picture of health. And then one day, it was before I moved, and before I moved, he just did his thing. You know that thing that the animals that you really love that seem to be perfect do.
Yeah, the ones that mean the most.
Yeah,
mine did the eat and die.
Didn't even say goodnight. Didn't say goodbye.
Yeah.
Just rolled over and died. I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. So I've left with multiple females and no male to play with, but I've got another one coming.
What about the Trinidads?
They're doing what they're doing. I've got a whole bunch of those. So I'm just feeding them up, and I'm not going to try them this year, but I'll probably try them next year. Some of them from our group will be bred probably this year.
And that's like kind of that's a close thing, right, Warren? I don't think you've sold any of those last time I checked, right?
No, we can't. No, we can't yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So as much as the emails that I get ask me for them, we can't. Just with the deal we have with the Trinidad government, so we have to wait for second generation. But we're coming up to we're probably about 2, maybe 3 years away from second generation breeding, and we've got a lot of bloodlines. We've had, I think, until we've had 5 or 6 litters of Trinidad's over the last couple of years.
So once they are available, you're going to get every single baby and give them to Nerd?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'll capture bread in house.
No, but so serious question though, like how do you, once it's time, how do you introduce something like that to the hobby? And like, because I'm sure obviously a project like that you've been passionate over, like I'm sure you just don't want them to be dumped on anybody, right? I'm just curious, like what your game plan would be introducing such a cool species into the hobby as far as availability goes.
That's a good question. I haven't really thought about it. There's a handful of people that I know that I want to send animals to, just as kind of as gifting them to them, as because they're friends and I know that they'll do well with them. Because for me, it's about kind of putting this species out and locality into the hobby and maintaining it. Because literally, before we brought them in 6 years ago, they were not in existence in the hobby anymore, and they hadn't been for a long time. So therefore, to bring them back into that, I'm much more happy to send them to people and say, work with these here and propagate them, because once they breed them and sell them, whenever I'm breeding them and selling, it's good for the market in general. Well, so there's a couple of people that I want to send them to, a pair or 2 pairs to, just to kind of keep things going.
Definitely.
And then after that, again, this is a hobby for me, so I don't really think about the money aspect of it. I'd rather give animals to people that are friends of mine than to sell them. So,
And
Yeah.
what species of Corrales is this?
It's Corrales ruschenbergeri,
Okay.
but they're from Trinidad. So on my pictures, if you find them, they're kind of golden colored, but they're kind of 7 feet long and eat kind of medium to large rats. So they're like Amazon tree boas, but on massive steroids.
Yeah,
but
I'm
they haven't been
familiar
in
with
hobby
the
for a long,
Ruschenberger.
long time.
I didn't realize they were from Trinidad.
So they're there's quite a large range. So they're from, you find them in Costa Rica, down through Venezuela, Colombia, but also into Trinidad and Tobago. And the Trinidad, in the last couple of years, there's been a bunch that's come through from Venezuela. But this is it here.
Wow.
But they're enormous. They're kind of scrub python sized tree boas, and these things they have the temperament of a nasty scrub python, whereas the Costa Rican Ruschenbergeri are quite placid.
Right.
So they're a lot
These things
bigger than regular Amazons.
About twice the size.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah. They eat large rats.
Oh,
My
shit.
Costa Ricans aren't placid.
Oh really? My Costa Ricans are the ones that I sent you. Are those?
Yeah.
Did I sent you Costa Ricans, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not placid now.
No, they're not psychos, but they're not. I wouldn't trust them.
Can you see these, Marshall? Can you see them?
Oh, yeah.
How they look? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I never knew how big they were. Like that, I could
Yeah,
see
they're
that
big.
being a difficult
And they
snake to wrangle if it didn't want to be, if it didn't want its water bowl changed or didn't want,
big scales and
That's
that's
an intimidating snake, bro. Look.
and
Yeah.
they are that like you think about Amazon tree boas, whenever they strike, they're kind of lobby, kind of like they flop at you,
Yeah.
These things are like they're like kind of trident missiles. They know exactly where you are, and they
So
just go
they
right at you.
hit with some power.
Oh yeah, they can't. I've never been bitten by them, thankfully, but they're on point.
How many
So
of them
they're
look like
amazing.
this? How many look like this, Warren, or is this like a unique looking one?
Most of them, nearly all of them, are looking like this here.
Wow. So this is an adult snake. It's kind of what the final product at some
That,
point, right?
Yeah, that one there is probably about 3 years old. That's wild caught, and that was probably about 3 years old. So she is now kind of close to 7 feet, and it's kind of medium to large, kind of large rats.
So with boas being like the bread and butter for you as far as the overall snakes, your approach, Warren, as far as breeding is almost the same with every boa, or is there different approaches per species? Like, let's talk about that.
Now, for me, it's all the same, because and we'll see how it goes over the next couple of years. Now that I'm in a new house and a different room and stuff like that, there, but I tend to start. I stop feeding everything November 1st. I start feeding everything again March 1st, and in between that time, I drop temperatures down so the nighttime gets to a low of 70, and then what I did this year was, as soon as I started dropping temperatures, I put everything together. Normally what I would do is I wait a couple of months and then put them together January 1st. But because of the whole move and going from, whatever above sea level we are in Tulsa to 2,000 feet in temperatures, I put them all together in November. So they all started breeding whenever they wanted to breed. But normally I put them together January 1st. They start really getting at it in February. I normally see ovulations March, April. And that doesn't matter whether that's an emerald, an Amazon, an annulated, a boa sigma, boa imperator. They all do the same thing. Even the pythons that are breed as well, the womas, the Darwin carpets, the children's, the spotteds, they all go at it in the kind of same time. I don't change temperatures for anything. They're all just based on the room, and
everything's ambient.
No, but everything's got heat panels, or else they're in a rack. But they're all set at an ambient of 85. And they'll have a hot spot and they'll have a cool end. But the cool end's going to be close to what the room is, which is, by the time the heaters are running, it's probably about kind of 74, 75, 76. And then in the winter, it'll cool down to probably 70 kind of thing. So
Now, one thing I'm paying attention to almost any boa species, right? Like anyone who has success with a litter, you could kind of like start paying attention to the ratio of live babies compared to like slugs. Sometimes you see mostly slugs and only a couple live babies, or the other way around. What do you think causes that, Warren? Like, is it the feeding, or like, I'm just curious as far as like, shout out to Mike Stefani. Holy shit. How many 16 babies? I think
and eight slugs. Yeah,
eight slugs. That's so much.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Mike's
eight
had,
Yeah.
Mike's had the biggest litter
shit.
that I've heard of in a while.
Me too.
Like Rich Eiley. I don't know if you guys remember Rich Eiley. You know, he had salmonboa.com.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, Rich and I and Dave Barker were kind of camping a couple of years ago, and Rich told me that he brought in 6 or 7 emeralds and bred them all, and he had like 68 babies out of the 6 they all produced, and he had like 68 or 69 babies out of those 6 females. And I was like, holy shit, that's like 10 or 11 babies. This is amazing. And then Mike he kept sending me messages, got 4, got 6, got 8, got 14. And then the next day I was like, find another one. And I was like, oh shit, there was another one.
I couldn't believe it.
And he was 15 or 16 and about 8 slugs. And I don't know, like I would love to see, and I'm sure I will, I'm sure I'll get up to Mike's place and see the size of that female.
Right.
But I've got one of the babies here and it's not small, you know, because you think about a big litter, it might be small babies.
Yeah.
It's the size of the babies that I would produce from females. And he just had an enormous litter.
I want to say, and more, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know how many months Uncle Mike was stressed out. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I think she's gravid. And it got to the point where I'm like, okay, old man, like, she's probably not gravid. Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
If, you know, and I'm like, you would have saw something at this point. And then all of a sudden I wake up one morning, he shows me a video and I'm like, holy shit, he fucking did it. And I was just so happy for him because he was like concerned. Like, he was like, wasn't knowing what was going on. And I knew he was in good hands because, you know, Warren was paying close attention and helping him out. And I got to say, that was probably a huge part of his success, you know, and shout out to Uncle Mike again for, you know, taking good notes. And, you know, I'm just happy for him. Like, that's really good for the hobby to see that, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I was thrilled to see it because Mike was messaging me back and forth. He would call me and he was stressing out because people were telling him, no, you can't do that. You got to do it this way.
Yeah,
you got to do it that way.
Yeah. And
I was like, Mike, she looks healthy. She's basking. She's doing everything. Just do exactly what you do. Right. The problem is that people think that you got a recipe and that's going to work for everybody around the US, around the world.
Fuck no.
What works for me in Tulsa might not work for me in Blacksburg. It might not work for Ryan. You know, it might not work for Marshall. It might not work for you. But what you do might work perfectly for you. Right. But not for us. So if the animal's looking healthy and it's basking and it's doing what it should be doing, leave it alone.
Don't change it.
Don't screw things up. Right. And sadly, people don't see that. And the problem is that people love to give advice whenever they've got no understanding of the system themselves and they've never bred them themselves. And they've probably never even kept them themselves. So I kept telling Mike, you know, it's like coaxing him off the ledge. You know, it's like, no, it's right, Mike. It's doing great. Leave it alone. It's not stressing. And he would send me pictures every couple of days. And it was just looking fantastic, you know, and I couldn't be happier for the guy because he's had so much success with monitors.
Right.
You know, and he's produced pygmy pythons, you know, he's produced these, and it's just, I was thrilled for the guy. I love the guy. I think it's absolutely fantastic. You know?
So to cap the video all off, guys, okay, you see these babies perched everywhere, and then I want to know what else you see? The male that never got pulled. The male's just sitting right there, and I'm like, dude, like, you know, according to everyone's rule book or whatever, you know, you pulled him out, bro. This fool did it like a fucking zoo, and he had success. I couldn't believe it.
I did tell him, I was like, no, Mike, it's time to pull that male. The last thing you need is for him breeding her again. But no, it's great. And it's funny because there's about 2 other people that I'm kind of helping, kind of nursing through it. Right. And I'm getting pictures every few weeks from them. It's just like, it's doing good. It's doing great. You know, just keep at it, you know, stay on target, you know, and it's all cool. So, but you know, what I would want to see is more captive bred emerald tree boas. Yeah. You know, because the more of those we see, the better the genetic diversity we have as a population, the better, the healthier the animals that we can select from. You know, I would love to have a room of just captive bred emerald tree boas that are from a diversity of collections, you know, where we can trade between each other and say, right, here's 2 of mine, I'll take 1 of yours and whatever, you know. So
I know Marshall's bred basins. Ryan, have you done basins yet?
Yeah, I did basins in 2010.
2010.
What do we have you? Of course he has.
I know. No shit. God damn. Yeah, my bad. But Warren, Doctor, what you haven't done any basins, correct? Or you have? Yeah, I can't remember.
I have not. I don't even have them yet, but I plan to get some maybe at the end of this year.
Now, what's the deal with basins taking a lot longer to drop a litter, and I'm wondering what would that be like, are they that different of a snake where basins will actually take longer to give
Are
birth?
they different? Ryan can probably tell us, and maybe Mark. So what number of days from ovulation?
Probably Ryan.
Ryan, for sure.
Well, I'd have
Like,
to look on my computer, but I didn't think it was any different. I thought the basins were a lot easier to breed than the northern.
Because they're dumber and they're easier. Yeah.
In what way, Ryan? How can you break that down for us?
The males seemed like more outgoing of a breeder than any of the experiences I've had with northerns so far.
Yeah. What about a basin?
But I wonder also is, but the basins you got were obviously captive bred, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder, is that an issue, right? Because, with wild caught, there is always an issue of getting wild caughts to either to acclimate and breed. Sometimes it can happen straight away, and sometimes it can take years and years before they really settle in and breed. You've probably seen that with pythons as well, but
yeah, I don't know. I had a Miss Willie male, and he wouldn't do anything, nothing. That thing, I put him with like 4 different females. He would never even go near them. And then I had the male that I have had breed was just a huge wild male, and he was fresh off the boat, like 6-8 months, and he'd put a peen in any female. So.
I never had luck with a captive bred male either.
I've heard over the years that the captive bred northern males don't breed for shit. But
I mean, I've only based my experience on one animal, but it was a super nice animal. I think maybe Ryan Wilson has it now. I can't remember who I sold it to. I think it might have been him. But anyway, it was a Merino, Ed Merino northern, and I tried to breed it. I've only had one pure northern that I got from Rico back in the day, and she was the mother. I tried to breed her. I think her first 2 litters. Her first litter was to a basin, produced some pretty crazy, cross basin hybrids, basin northern hybrids, and then her second litter was also to a basin. But I tried the northern first, and he didn't want any, he just wasn't interested. So I was
I had a male from Rico, and that thing would have bred a stick. He was phenomenal. But he also was one of these kind of asshole males that he would spend 6 months of the year also not eating and trying to lose as much weight as possible. So then at the end of those 6 months of a fast, he looked like a skeleton. And then all of a sudden he kicked back into feeding, and you spend a couple of months getting him back up to weight. And then he'd go in and breed anything you could put him to. So there's always that stress. And sadly, this year, he decided that after that 6 months of a fast, he didn't want to stop fasting. And I did not get him to go back into food at all. So
how old? How long did he live?
He was probably 17 or something like that, 18. So I would have expected him to go longer, but he bred a lot of things, and he was great, but he wasn't very big. He was quite small. But he just wouldn't go back into. But every year he did that 6 months, 7 months of not eating.
Yeah, I got another male. Well, I got another male that's small, so I'm curious to see, because I want to breed. I don't want all my baby northerns fathered by the same male, if possible. So I've got another male, but I don't know how small they'll breed. So I'm
I don't think they need to be big. Generally they have pretty big spurs. They can be pretty active in what they're doing. So I don't think they need to be that big at all. I think if you got them, I think if they're 3.5, 4 years old and eating kind of adult mice, then I think they're going to be ready to go.
Yeah, when I got him, he was import, and when I got him, he had huge spurs. So I was like, "Oh shit, okay, it's a boy."
Yeah, he's probably older than you think he is, right?
Yeah, he's probably like fucking 8, 9 years old already.
Yeah, right.
Well,
I wonder if that could be the thing too with northern male, or northern males not breeding. Maybe they're just not. We're not waiting long enough. That's a long time, 7 or 8 years. Yeah,
it's amazing in that we are. We're 2024. We've been seeing emeralds in the hobby since being bred in the hobby since the early 80s at least, and we're still not really sure about breeding emerald tree boas.
Yeah,
it's kind of remarkable that we're still in that infancy phase of that species, and yet there's probably multiple more basins produced every year than there are northern emeralds.
I
And
say that all the
that
time.
amazes
That
me.
like people are
In
like basins
captivity
are
for
bred
sure.
way
Yeah.
more commonly than northerns.
Yeah, and that amazes me. You know, so it's and you know, it's funny because you know, whenever I started selling captive bred emeralds, I was like, I don't know, it's like $1,500, and people are like, "What are you talking about? This should be $350." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" You know, it's like
Fucking
you
shipping.
don't find. You know, you show me captive bred emeralds, and they couldn't. Whereas nobody kind of bats an eyelid at a $3,500 or $4,500 baby basin. You know.
Oh shit, there are
It's about to change. I think over the next
It
couple of
is,
years.
and you're seeing that change, and I think it's a good thing.
yeah.
And in time, I think the price will come back. Maybe it'll settle somewhere about 1,000,
Sure.
which I think is very reasonable for an emerald, for a northern, because they're not easy to breed, you know, and they're not an animal for everyone.
No.
But
Well,
yeah,
I've tried 4 times for 6 babies.
right.
I got 9 slugs once. I got a female that retained her babies.
Yeah,
And
the story. I remember the text messages you kept sending me about tails hanging out and you pulling out dead babies and stuff like that. There,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah,
It's insane. And you're not the first person that's told me about kind of Corrales holding on to babies. Like Nick Mutton has told me multiple times about his Ruschenbergeri that just mummified babies inside them and died.
Oof.
And I've heard the same thing with emeralds. I've heard the same thing with Amazon tree boas.
Amazons. I've had an
Annulated.
Amazon do it.
yeah. My basin
so-
female that I loaned my buddy did it.
Damn.
You know, I think I mentioned on another podcast before that a litter of Ruschenbergeri, maybe Costa Rican Ruschenbergeri, maybe I can't remember, was it 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago? I think maybe the litter from the babies that I sent you, Ryan. That female, I came in, I was on vacation, came back, and an emerald and she ovulated on the same day and dropped babies on the same day.
Oh, wow.
But she dropped 3 babies, and she's like 7 feet, and she dropped like 3 or 4 babies, and I was like, what's going on here? And I thought she must have dumped a bunch of slugs and ate them, because I've watched Corrales eat slugs before. 3 or 4 days later, I'm sitting in my office at work, and I turn around, and she's dropping more babies. And she dropped like 9 or 10 more babies and like 5 stillborns. So she retained babies in her for 4 or 5 days later. Keith McPeak had the same thing. He had a female that same year drop 1 baby, and then 4 or 5 days later drop another like 8 or 9 babies that were stillborn. I think
So
so. There's something. Corrales are not easy to breed. There's some little tweaks that they have. I don't know what it is.
and I'm sure, like, you know, obviously these females that mummify the babies inside them, they pass them through sometimes and they live just fine, right?
Right.
But what are the, like, you know, I could tell you at least 4 people off the top of my head who've had female basins ovulate. They get so far into it and then they just roll over and die.
Yep, I lost.
I've had
first
Amazons
basin
do
like
that. My first ever Amazon did that.
Yeah,
One of them died. 1995.
One of them rolled on like day 190. Like it was like that far past the you know, the typical what it's supposed to lay or whatever. A basin.
That's what I had. My first Amazon tree boa. She must have been on. They like, you know, my emeralds normally drop about 100 day 145. Same with Amazons. Same with annulate, or same with Ruschenbergeri post ovulation, and she was probably on day 140, 145, and she rolled. And I cut her open, and there were like 15 little red babies all in their sacks. And it wasn't even as if they ruptured and they were trying to get out. She just rolled over and died. It's like
Marshall knows about cutting open a basin, huh, Marshall?
Yeah, I mean, my experience is kind of the same. Same female, same conditions, same male, same everything. 1 year, 12 perfect babies, no slugs, and the next year just disaster. You know, like one or found 1 or 2 out in the cage, and then you know, it was clear that she wasn't going to make it, and you know, cut her open, and I saved a baby. There was 3 or 4.
Wow.
That were in. Yeah, there's 3 or 4 in there that were like you're saying, in the sack that hadn't even, you know, looked like they had tried to push out. And then when I cut her open, 1 baby, you know, stuck its head out, poked through the sack. It's crazy.
And was there like a large slug blocking it, or was there anything that was?
Man, I don't think so, but like, you know, I wasn't exactly like
Yeah, looking at the time, you kind of stress at the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm not one to cut something open. Like I've never gutted a deer or anything like that.
Warren,
I've dissected much.
Warren, I've heard from a lot of the breeders whose experiences are feeling like they didn't give their female long enough break. And even Casper from the Netherlands, I believe, he gave his female, I think, a 3-year break, I think, and she still did not perform well after a successful.
No, his was a sib to mine, so he was on the same schedule.
But he waited, like you went back to back, right? Like, didn't you?
No, both of us were the same. Like he had a good litter the first time, almost like simultaneously, which his snake and my snake were sibling.
But do you think waiting longer is probably more of an ideal thing if this is the case with like a female laying successful litters, and then the next time around it's just fucking flop over dead? I can hear you.
I think one thing, physiologically, it's very stressful. And two, we underestimate the age of these animals that they live to. So I think boas in general, female boas, it's not unlikely that you see these big emeralds coming in. It's not, unrealistic that they're 20-year-old, 25 years old. We look at the studies that have been done on reproduction in timber rattlesnakes, and they find animals that have been tracked for over 40 years, and they've only produced 1 or maybe 2 litters in those 40 years. So it takes a long time to recover.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
It takes a long time to recover from reproduction. And I think, unfortunately, we think that, they get back onto food and they regain the weight and that's enough. And I don't think that's necessarily is enough. I think, physiologically, it takes a lot of a female to go for 5 months, 6 months without eating and the whole process, so.
It definitely takes a lot out of it, man. Like both times that this animal has had litters, the first time, well, like I said, both times, I mean, she just looked completely terrible.
Oh, they look terrible.
Like sunken in head muscle or jaw muscles, and I mean, just like totally emaciated.
And it's surprising. And a number of years ago, there was a boa breeder, not emeralds or Amazons, but a boa breeder that was more prominent. That used to say that the boa constrictor, boa imperator, had 3 breedings in them before they were useless. And I disagree with that entirely. I think if you try to breed them back to back or too soon, then they got 3 breedings and then you killed them.
Yeah.
But I think if you give them long enough breaks in between it, then they recover a lot better. And I think 2 years is a minimum. I think 3 years would be better. But really, it depends. You're the person that owns the snake. You know better than anyone. When you look at it every day, you can see that for emeralds and Amazons and anything else, you see those kind of bulbs at the back of the head. Whenever you see them deflated, they're not ready to breed. Whenever you see them kind of filled up and you don't want them kind of grotesque, but whenever you start to see those kind of going, that the animal's hydrated and it's got decent body weight and so on.
Do you know what the longevity record is in captivity for an emerald?
I've heard of some getting into their early 30s, but I know of some breeding into their early 20s.
Okay.
And I've seen some, I've got some anaconda phase downstairs that are just humongous, and they're easily in their late teens. Just looking at them, because you see a wild caught snake, and based on a captive bred the same size, that based on the head structure and body structure, there's no way they're the same age. I'd say there's some of the mine that are definitely in their late teens. I've got boa imperator and boa sigma downstairs that are in their late teens that are breeding and they're doing great. So there's no reason why Corrales can't do the same thing.
Yeah, that's always the rub. Is your goal to make more babies or keep the animal alive forever?
Right.
Those two things kind of conflict with each other.
With females, right? But not males.
Well, even males, I mean, especially boa males seem to put more into courtship than a lot of the python males. So I can see where that would run them down, like Warren was saying with that male he lost.
That's what it does. I think that's what it does. They really, once they get experience, they really go at it. And pulling them back from that there is really difficult.
Yeah.
And what you also got to think is, you look at these old animals that have been in captivity for a long time, especially, or these old animals that are just brought in. That's kind of some old genes that are floating around that are really nice to maintain if you can and to propagate. It'd be nice to have that diversity of genetics within populations instead of just all coming from, 3 litters of captive bred babies that were produced, this year or last year. You want to try and kind of get those animals going and maintain them.
Let me ask
Well,
you.
luckily, it seems like most of the people who are breeding Northerns, it seems like they're not they're all from founder stock. It seems like you're very rarely seeing F1s or F2s.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is that there's just not a lot of them about. A lot of those kind of captive bred animals in numbers, where people are just breeding captive bred to captive bred.
Yeah, well, we took for granted, the imports come in so regularly that the serious effort into Northerns really, hasn't been like it is with the Basins.
Where do all the wild caughts come from? Are they all Suriname or Guyana?
Suriname and Guyana. Yeah, they're both. Yeah, Suriname and Guyana. And the ones coming in from Guyana tend to be a little bit more heavily parasitized. But they're both. Are they genetically different? Probably not a lot. Based on.
Yeah, I mean, aren't Suriname and Ghana right next to each other? Don't they? Yeah. They border each other.
Snakes. They don't hold passports, so they don't really worry about passport control.
Well,
so there's.
Yeah, what stands out in my head right now, since we're talking about two different things on a map here, a lot of things that are considered localities in the chondro world aren't really the locality that snake's being pulled from. It's just a name, right? I'm curious because there are different, like the bright yellow, like there's brighter yellow northern emeralds, right? And I forget the locality or what they consider those types, right? But like, for instance, how do you explain those two different types within the northern emerald tree boas?
Genetic variation, population variation. Look at a population of whatever city you live in, whatever city Marshall or Ryan lives in. There's diversity in the phenotype of the people that live there.
No, not here.
See the same thing.
Not here.
Well, there are only 4 of you, and you're all related, right? So.
But serious stuff, Ryan. Let's say you had two different completely looking northern emerald tree boas. Would you be worried to breed them?
No, I wouldn't be worried.
Okay.
No, northern. The funny thing with northern emeralds is they've never really, other than being called Suriname or Guyana, that's the extent of the locality stuff that I've heard of. They've never really marketed them like the chondro thing. It's never been.
Couple of times where I've seen them.
Even Basins have
trying to.
Go ahead.
There's been a couple of times where I've seen people trying to sell northern emeralds from specific parts of the basin of the river or whatever, and it's all bullshit. They went there themselves and collected them. It's all crap, right? But I would agree with you, Ryan, that I would have no problem breeding at Suriname to Guyana. I've seen the genetic diversity between constrictor, and it's minimal. So I would think the same thing is with caninus. So sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all
no, that's okay. Now I was just going to say with Basins, I guess Basins have a larger range than the Northerns do. Within that, like you look at the Peruvian Basins, I always just see those are the ones that get posted on Facebook, and those are different.
They're really.
So you think they're like another species?
Yeah. So there's been some genetic work done a number of years ago, and the level of genetic diversity between those and the TC that we see in the other part of the range is really high. It's at the kind of 8% level, which is the same that we would see between scrubs and bowlings, kind of thing. Right? So it's a really high level of genetic difference. And if you look at them, like phenotypically, they look very, very different. The pattern's very different. The color's very different. And there's kind of some clear level of differentiation. Now, what we don't have are samples in between those and kind of, the kind of Brazil, where you might see, if you had a species that occurs over a broad range, at the range, they can be really genetically different from each other. But what we want are how different are they in between that there? Are we seeing this incremental change, right? So where you see the stepwise change, this. And even if it is two species, you might see a hybrid zone occurring. We don't have those samples, sadly. But
you would
certainly
think that with their range being
very, very different.
with their range being so large, like if you looked at green tree python range, and I get that there's geographical obstructions and whatnot in between them, but that's got to be like a speck when you look at it versus the range of a basin, right?
Yeah,
Like just
I think there's less. I think there are less geographic barriers, significant geographic barriers for corvallis compared to green tree pythons. But there's certainly a massive range, and there are geographic barriers. And I think we see that between obviously basins and northerns, and certainly this Peruvian kind of lineage. And
Well,
the
and what
Peruvian
we see
lineage is
today
very, very
isn't
different.
necessarily what it was like, millions
Exactly
of years ago.
what drove that differentiation. That's exactly
Yeah.
right, Ryan. What was that kind of vicariance event that said, that split populations for X number of millions of years, or hundreds of thousands of years, or tens of thousands of years, that drove that speciation occurring. Yeah.
Now, hot topic, and I guess Marshall's not here for this, whatever. But a lot of people, as we all know, you look into getting an emerald, being new into the hobby, you realize that there's quite a price difference between ones you see at a show that are in a container versus ones being available from a breeder, right? And then, they get one that pukes. And I will say, when you're new, you try to figure it out. Like, why is this puking? Why is this snake puking? Why the hell would it puke? And why would it not stop puking? What do you say to that in a sense, to even somebody that maybe you just met, Warren, maybe someone that maybe before they even met you, they didn't know all this information, but what would be your answer to someone who can't understand why a northern emerald tree boa can't stop puking?
So I think there are multiple factors that cause regurgitation. We know the kind of we know the main ones that are thrown up. The avian chlamydia, cryptosporidium, and so on. I think hydration is a major issue. If you look at dehydration in humans, you get the same phenotype as dehydration in emeralds. They get bloating, they get regurgitation. So it's a similar thing. And one of the major issues is that when wild caught emeralds come in, they're dehydrated at the initial stage. They're dehydrated at the import. They're dehydrated once they get sent to a seller. They're dehydrated once they get to an individual, and it doesn't take long for kidneys to pack in, and that's it. They're done. So I think dehydration is a major issue. But then add on top of that their parasite load and stress. I think that can throw things out. Until you can get an animal really well established, and at that point, I don't think you should be feeding them as soon as they come in. I think you need to just hydrate, and then go from there. Once you know they're hydrated, they're shedding, they're plump, they're healthy. Their skin looks good. You can tell an emerald is dehydrated just by the look of it. Its skin just does not look right. You can tell a hydrated emerald, even if it's not. In terms of feeding, if it's underweight, its skin still looks different. At that point, once it starts to eat, if it's regurgitating, then there's issues that you need to look at, such as avian chlamydia and cryptosporidium, and so on. But there's so many different things on this factor, on this kind of scale. But I think, and I've been thinking it more and more recently, I think hydration is one of the key issues of regurgitation in emeralds.
But on the whole scale, though, this is the thing with them, right? There's no going back. Like, once this northern starts showing up, and not even a pattern from what I've seen, and I want to say this is over 8 emeralds from what I experienced this with. Once they puke, they may be okay on the next meal if you go smaller, of course, right? But if you try to give it that same size meal again and it pukes again, it doesn't fix. Like is there ever, fixing that from what you've seen, Warren?
So I think if it's a fresh import and you're seeing it, then it's a bad sign. If it's an animal you've had for a couple of years and it started doing it, and there's no reason, you haven't brought in new animals, then there's probably an internal factor that you need to look at. And that might be fixable. But I think those ones that come in wild caught that start puking, think about it in humans. Regurgitation in humans causes a lot of dehydration itself. Added on top of that, the dehydration, I think that's a kind of one of those positive feedback loops that just sends them on that spiral. but I think it depends on the stage of where they are in terms of a fresh import versus an established animal. They can regurgitate for many reasons, but if it's early on and they're doing it and every meal is doing it, then I think it's a really bad sign. But if you haven't taken the effort to really hydrate those animals, then dehydration to the point where the kidneys shut down can happen really quickly. So the first thing you do when you get a new fresh import is just hydrate the crap out of it. And it's not soaking it; it's just setting up in enclosures where you have arboreal water bowls, relatively high humidity, lots of ventilation, and then you work with it, and don't keep it in these, 80 degrees, like at least give them some temperature. Like I keep all my emeralds at 84, 85 degrees ambient.
Yeah.
And they drink a lot, they feed well. And with the imports, I just leave them alone. Once I get them, they go into a box and I don't look at them maybe once a week, once every twice a week. And I leave them, I don't even offer them food for quite a while.
And
Have you had pretty good luck establishing wild caughts?
Mm-hmm. Since I started using that kind of process, whenever I got them, I put them in the enclosures, I tried to feed them, and then things would go downhill.
Yeah.
And then a number of years ago, I just thought, you know what? I'm just getting these Rubbermaid containers. I'm going to put in 3 perches from the floor level up to the top, enough where they can perch, arboreal water bowls, and just paper towels. I'll damp that, and I'll put them in the corner, and I put a heat mat under the bottom, and I set it where the middle perch was 84 degrees. So the bottom perch was sitting about 88, and the top perch was sitting about 80, and I just put them in and left them alone, and didn't look at them for weeks, literally. And I would come back and they'd shed their skin, and they'd shed that kind of jungle skin, and they were a lot fresher and healthier. And at that point, you could see, based on the water bowl, every day that water, I've topped it up, and I just use the deli cups that are, they're about, like 2 inches or whatever.
Yeah.
And every day that would be half emptied, and it wasn't through evaporation. Those things were drinking a lot, but it's because their head was right beside it. And once they moved around, they found it immediately, and they would drink from it. And I replaced that, as soon as the only thing I did to annoy those things was I put in fresh water every couple of days.
Yeah.
And once you put in fresh water,
brothers.
they drink. Emeralds with fresh water, any snake with fresh water, I think, but emeralds especially with fresh water, they would drink, and I just kept doing that. And then after maybe about a month, I would start thinking, right, maybe I'll offer a meal. And I'll just get a superheated small rat or medium rat. And I've always said that I don't go in with small meals. If it's an adult emerald, it's going to get offered a medium rat or a decent sized animal.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't take that, if they regurge that, then there's some other issue. Okay. Because in the wild, they're not turning around and going, well, that medium rat is what slaps me on the branch. I'll wait until that small one, they just don't do well. And I feed my adult emeralds. They get medium to large rats every 3 to 4 weeks. And
shout out to Brandon Wheeler. Brandon Wheeler, very passionate about emerald tree boas. He's starting to inquire some, and that's what his jam is all about. And he went through the ringer at first. He inquired a couple babies that were puking on him, and I got to tell you that you do get puke PTSD. Like you like think, oh my God, anything that eats, as far as emerald tree boas go, they puke. But I got to tell you, Brandon, I think I'm 3 years PTSD free, man. All because I stopped fucking with imports first and foremost. But once I had these things that I've had and they've been established, I fed these things fucking gigantic meals, bro, and they've never puked. They've never. Even the girl that grabbed it, because you walked me through that whole process, Warren. Remember you were telling me the size meals to give them? I gave this bitch such a big rat that kicked her in ovulation, and I thought, oh my God, like, oh, you did it now, MJ. But no, man, no regurgitation. These things can handle massive. You know what I mean?
I've given them retired breeder rats before. No,
exactly. They're a boa. They're part of a lineage called the macrostomata. Right. Macrostomata means big mouthed, right? They're not eating tiny meals. They don't have the opportunity to be fussy in the wild. But the thing is, they're not eating every 2 weeks in the wild, right? You feed them a big meal and leave them alone. And the other thing is, they can thermoregulate.
Yes.
Right. They can choose cold. They can choose warm. And I will tell you that once I feed my animals, they don't sit in a perch. They'll move between 78 with my cages, I keep my adult emeralds in 4-foot cages or 3-foot cages, depending. They move between the 90 degrees to the 78, 76 kind of range, and they totally thermoregulate.
Yeah, I have to just put a pause on this right now because, again, the ratio just does not add up. 60 people watching. There's only 30 likes. We need to get the likes up right now, please, okay? Because we're going to save you from regurg PTSD by just fucking giving you this content right now. Please get the likes up or Ryan Young's going to get upset. Thank you so much.
We don't want that.
Oh, man.
You don't want to see this guy angry.
You better not crossbreed on this motherfucker. No, okay, but because listen, at the end of the day, this is what it comes down to, Warren. And I'm glad you told me about the hydration thing because a lot of people mean well, and I always say if it makes sense, then go ahead and do it. Like, meaning if something in you, whatever reason, feels like you need to buy that snake that's on the table at a fucking show, then God bless you. Go ahead and just be ready, right? And people come to me and they go, MJ, you're gonna be disappointed, but I bought this snake, and and I'm like, dude, and I tell them, feed them a fucking good sized meal if you want to know what's going on with that snake. But I tell them don't wait. But now I feel like maybe waiting is okay because
just hydrate.
Okay, that's really I'm glad to hear that because I
Don't think that putting it in a water bath hydrates it. Putting it in a tub of water hydrates. You know what? You're more likely if you soak an emerald, you're more likely to kill it.
Yeah, dude.
Exactly. Because look at their body plan. Their body plan is that, right?
Yeah.
They're floppy. You pick them up. They're awful.
Oh man,
You put it in a water bath. You're
will
more
drown
likely
them
to drown an
so
emerald.
quick.
You're more likely to drown an emerald than you are to hydrate it.
They're legit.
Just give it arboreal water bowls where they're always around it, and it means that whenever they start moving, you could just look at how an emerald moves. There you go. When they move, they look around them, and the first thing they find is a water bowl.
That's a pretty ovulation right there, just so you know.
I've heard of so many drownings.
That turned out not to be an ovulation. That just turned out to be a pre-ovulation.
Oh,
she decided not to ovulate.
Big follicles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, and this also throws a lot of people in the loop. A lot of people look at this and they think, oh shit, I'm gonna get babies. And I think it happened to Stephen Cush a couple times with emeralds, but like they almost could fake you out in a sense, huh, Warren?
Mm-hmm. All boas can, so boas, the most people don't realize is they do a pre-ovulation and an ovulation. So you'll find many people that end up getting slugs is that they think their female swells, so they remove the male and they put the male away, but they don't realize that that's just the maturation of the follicles. They're starting to swell, they're starting to grow. The actual ovulation happens several weeks to maybe sometimes several months later. The problem with boas is, unlike pythons, is they don't have this great ability to store sperm. Pythons can store sperm, like ball pythons, blood pythons, and so on, can store sperm for several years. I've heard of records of about 3 years for blood pythons. I've heard records of storing sperm in ball pythons for 2 years, which means that if you're breeding your female ball python to multiple different males each year, you could be getting different offspring through sperm storage. We have records of rattlesnakes storing sperm for 7 years.
Damn.
So, but boas are terrible. They seem to have this just inbuilt inability to store sperm. So therefore, if they're breeding away, and you'll also notice with boas, copulation takes a long time. They get out. Sometimes they get right at it, but a lot of times they spend time kind of building up, and that tail twisting is not actually copulation. It's just they start courting and so on, and you could remove it before they've actually bred.
Right.
So I've always said to people with boas, just keep them together until they've swollen and until they're ignoring each other and until the female is basking. And at that point, then you can separate. But if you remove them too soon, like if you took a male out now from this with this female here, then you would have thought, right, everything's done, but it wasn't at all. The male was still in there, and he was ignoring her, but they just didn't breed.
So let me ask, good.
What's your take on? Because I've bred, I've tried to breed northerns a few times, and there's definitely one of my females. The male would breed with her, but it always seemed like they didn't like each other that much. Like there was never that real classic long lockup. It was almost like, we're going to do this begrudgingly. First time I tried, I got slugs. Second time, 2 babies, 7 slugs. But that male with other females, like he's they're cuddling, they're locked up for days, like, and so have you noticed compatibility issues?
I think so,
multiple
yeah.
male benefit type
I've
things?
seen that there, and I think I'm seeing that right now with a bunch of anaconda phase that I've got. And but I think it happens in all animals. Like we think that, because we put them together, they should breed. That doesn't happen in humans, right?
No.
It doesn't happen in other organisms you see. So why should they? Like we're removing this whole kind of
Warren,
millions of years of evolution.
Even breeding doesn't even mean something's going to happen, right?
No.
Because that's what I'm saying. Like,
The other thing,
a lot of variables here.
My favorite post that I see is like, "Oh, we paired these together and just hit me up about babies," and I'm like, because they're breeding doesn't mean they're going to breed. Doesn't mean they're going to see babies. Because they produce eggs doesn't mean they're going to hatch. Because they produce live babies doesn't mean they're going to survive. I think compatibility is something we haven't even really started thinking about with snakes, and I think that's actually a major thing. I think there are animals that are compatible and animals that are not compatible, and there's many reasons that can drive that. In mammals, we see inbuilt things called major histocompatibility complexes that drive relationships in many cases. We don't even understand that kind of concept in reptiles, whether that kind of thing happens, and therefore whether there should be compatibility issues. And also the other issue is, are we putting them together at the right time? Right? So because in captivity we always breed them at this period of time, doesn't mean that our wild caught ones that we brought in should be breeding at the same time. They can be breeding in a totally different cycle. And unless we're introducing them, then we don't even see that. So Ryan, I think that's a really interesting question, and I think it's one that we haven't even touched upon in terms of how we keep animals and how we breed them. And that's probably why we're not seeing more reproduction in many animals, because we're just assuming the pair, we've got 1.1 and they're going to breed. I don't think that's the case.
If Mike Monitors was a male emerald tree boa, I would pay a lot of money for him. He has 9 kids. 9 kids this guy has, okay?
Yeah, but he's also got 4 hemipenes. So
Dude, there's no blanks from Uncle Mike, I'll tell you that much. None.
Hey, Warren, are you aware of any like documentation, breeding ball kind of situation with emeralds?
No,
like a lot of their close relatives.
You see it in anacondas. You see it in you see it in anacondas. I'm not, but I'm also not aware of it in epicrades as well. And epicrades are kind of closer to those than anacondas, I believe. But you've seen it in some boa lineage. You see it in occidentalis. You see it in boa sigma as well. But I have not, and I wonder is the reason we haven't seen it is because we're not putting them all together. But also, I have seen instances where male emeralds fight.
Yeah, they're vicious to each other,
and they're really vicious. But it's also but it's just like putting male green trees together; they'll rip each other apart.
Yeah,
or even females. I mean, I've had 2 females almost kill each other. It was crazy. That was an accident.
Look at the spurs on an adult male emerald, and the spurs on an adult male green tree. Like they're nothing compared to what you see. Like they're huge compared to what you would see on a boa sigma or a boa imperator. So I think they are not a breeding ball kind of system. I've never looked at the spurs on an anaconda, but you see the pictures in the wild where there's 5 males, tiny little males wrapped around the tail of a female.
Well, I wonder if that could be a situation where, I mean, like we've discussed in the wild, the biggest, baddest male, the best fighter or whatever, if there's a female cycling in that area, he's probably going to be the male that gets to her. And I wonder if, she knows that, that, hey, if this male made it to me, he's the one that I should mate with because he had to run the gauntlet to get here.
Yeah,
well, captivity, we just throw one in there.
The issue is that is the biggest, baddest male always the best? And what you find, for example, in things like elephant seals, where you see those like the beach masters and the
there's always the satellite male getting in there too.
It's the satellite. The tiny little males are the ones that are breeding.
Wow.
The ones that are siring a lot of offspring. So I honestly don't believe that the females are necessarily thinking about it in that kind of context. But I think if we rotated more males through females, I think you might see more breeding opportunity.
Hybrid litters have showed us that multiple paternity.
It happens absolutely. Yeah,
it must be very common. So there's probably very few wild litters where every baby's from one male.
Right.
The first ever study I did as a scientist, I was an undergraduate researcher in 1997, finishing up my undergraduate degree, and I was working in a lab, and I worked on small mammal kind of population genetics and breeding systems, and we were working on this wood mice in Ireland there were females that were captured from the wild that were gravid. They dissected out the embryos, and we had DNA from those, and we genotyped the mother and the offspring. And the female might have had 6 babies, and out of those, 2 were from one male, 2 from a different male, 2 from a different male. And out of the 7 or 8 litters that we looked at, all of them were sired by multiple males. And those litters were sired equally. It wasn't as if 6 of the babies were one male and 1 was another. There was equal distribution of the contribution of different males, which massively increases genetic diversity, which massively increases evolutionary adaptability of the species or of the individuals theoretically. We haven't really looked at that a lot in snakes, and I not at all in boas. But I'm sure it happens. I'm sure if we took some of these females that come in gravid and drop babies, I'm sure we would see evidence of multiple paternity in those as well.
Well, there was an interesting study on wild Echollectus parrots in Australia, and that most people consider parrots monogamous, and none of the parrot clutches. There was always multiple male.
Birds are like college students. They
found that there was one male that thought all the babies were his, but they weren't.
I went to college. I'll stay monogamous now. But birds have turned out to be one of the most promiscuous systems that's existed. There's the whole story of the dunnock in the UK, and there was a minister that would preach about how this little dunnock, this tiny bird, was so monogamous and so great, and they did genetic studies and found out it was one of the most promiscuous systems on the planet. So it's like
they're
birds,
whores.
birds, and birds are avian reptiles, right?
Yep.
So they follow the same kind of rules. So, but I think I would be shocked if things like corrales, like emeralds in the wild, if given the opportunity, I would be shocked if they were not breeding multiple times during a reproductive season and producing litters of offspring that were sired by multiple males. Every system does it. If we look at it, monogamy is not the most dominant system on the planet. It rarely happens, and especially whenever they're producing large numbers of offspring and litters, it's very uncommon to find promiscuous, like single sired litters of that number when given the opportunity.
I wonder if that's why you do see, a lot of slugs and stuff. Maybe they need multiple male sperm battles.
It might be, because that's the other thing. We haven't actually looked at sperm count in males. How many people have pulled up a microscope and said, right, I'm going to actually look at sperm number over time in the season? Because remember, a big thing that people used to say with snakes was, remember to separate them every week or 2 to let them build up sperm again and then put them back together again. That doesn't happen. Snakes produce sperm 1 time a year.
Oh,
shit!
Spermatogenesis
occurs at one point in the year.
Really?
And they have that, and that's it.
Dude,
once they use it, it's gone.
Oh,
right?
Is that in all species?
Heartbreaking.
Pretty much in most that we know of, it's pretty much spermatogenesis occurs at one point in the year, and once they use it up, it's gone.
Okay, I want to say something.
Right. So what that means is you can put them together too early, and I did that this year with spotted pythons and children's pythons with 2 pairs, and they went at it right away, and I think they were done. And you can put them together too late, right? Because as soon as the female ovulates, because the eggs are fertilized at ovulation, right? So if you put them together too late, then you've lost it as well. So you need to get that window right, which is why the ball python breeders with their
windows,
ultrasounds have been great. They can actually time them a bit better. I think it takes out the fun of breeding, but yeah, taking them apart doesn't really do anything. That's why I just put mine together, leave them alone, and that's it.
But Warren, with ball pythons, I could say right now, there's no putting them together too early. Like that's not a fucking problem. I've had males that
pythons,
like. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You can put them together in a wet paper bag, and they will breed and produce offspring. They'll probably produce eggs, and offspring will hatch within 24 hours that you're there. They don't care.
And eat on their own.
They're past the whole. And remember what ball pythons were 30 years ago? They were one of the hardest species to breed, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I remember reading it was an impossible thing. Literally was written impossible.
Literally, there's no point buying them because you cannot breed them. Right? I remember
you can't even get them to eat. I remember like when I was a kid, that was they would never eat. I'll say this though, I've had a male ball python father 10 clutches in one season.
Right. They can. Yeah, and I think so. What you also find is if you like, we've been doing this with copperheads and cottonmouths. Cottonmouths have got really, really tiny testicles. Copperheads have got massive testicles. We don't find multiple paternity in cottonmouths. We find lots of multiple paternity in copperheads. So big testicles, lots of sperm, small testicles, not. So, and we don't know that. We don't know how that looks in pythons and boas. We don't know. What a great topic in this thing, talking about testicle size in snakes. But that really does translate into whether you're going to see multiple paternity or not. If you've got big balls, you're more likely to see multiple paternity.
Yep.
Right. I'm not going to go into it, Ryan.
I was just thinking of that chimpanzee picture with the.
Oh god! Right, no, let's not go there. Yeah,
chimpanzee versus gorilla talk.
Right, but it's again, it's stuff we just don't know, and there's just not the basic studies on that kind of reproductive behavior. And the reason being is that the only reason we will see those studies are from people in captivity doing it, right? Our hobbyists doing it. It's not science driven because there's no money to do that kind of stuff. Right. So it's got to be people like you, Marshall, and Ryan and me, and well, apparently MJ's gone. He's turned off the lights and he's disappeared. Oh, he's back.
I'm sorry.
But it's only people in captivity that really can start thinking about, if they paired multiple males together and so on, are we seeing multiple paternity? And so we see it in ball pythons all the time. I've seen it in boas all the time. So there's no reason why it doesn't happen in corrals and so on. But we're
I've been curious. I used 2 males with the popwin pythons, and I was thinking about getting paternity tests to see, because I did with black white lips. I've used 2 males, and I wasn't sure. I never saw one of the males breed, so I didn't think he fathered any of the babies, and it turned out he didn't. I had those tested, but
how many babies did you get with the popwins?
I just ended up with 4.
That makes it difficult, right? Because then you got a small kind of sample size.
When I did the white lips, basically he took the adults. He wanted to see how different the adults were genetically before he would decide if he could tell paternity or not. And he said they were very, very different. So it was easy.
So the good thing is with white lips and popwins is because they're not captive bred lineages, they're all wild caught.
Yeah.
So the likelihood that you've got siblings is very minimal, and therefore it makes that identification easier. Yeah. But then again, like look at the work this past couple of years. Looking at the bowlings that have been produced for the last bunch of years. There's been, those ones that have been produced were putting 4 or 5 different males with a female. But also, I think there was a clutch this year with a pair that was just back in the UK, right? Yeah. It was a male and female and produced a big litter, a big clutch, right? Like a 10 or 12 or whatever kind of clutch. So that kind of, again, questions, do we need lots of males or do you not?
I think that's anecdotal. I mean, it's probably beneficial, but I don't think it's the be-all, end-all.
I don't think it's necessary, yeah.
I mean, it comes down to a few things, right? Like you got to have a good breeder male who wants to breed, but then sperm quality is everything too, right? Because,
that's why having multiple males helps.
Right.
Because you can have a male that's throwing blanks at that point. It doesn't mean he'll throw blanks next year, but he could be spent, he could be used up, but the other male is not, or the other male is not.
Yeah,
and
but
then you also get a sperm competition. The sperm will compete against each other in the tracts, where you get certain sperm are traveling faster. In rodents, it's weird. You'll actually find sperm that form trains. so they'll connect to each other to propel themselves through the tracks to get to the eggs faster. So it's sperm competition is a weird system in itself. But using more males than a female will increase your likelihood of, it doesn't dilute necessarily, right? Because the sperm that are dead are not getting to the egg, right? It just increases the likelihood you're going to have sperm there for a male that's going to, or for the eggs that are present.
Yeah, but what's on the topic of that, it's you don't really know a male is shooting blank, especially if it's a male who's getting the job done right in front of your face. Like, if I see,
you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know, right? So
and because it happened 2 years ago where he was perfect doesn't mean that this year he'll do the same job.
But you've got to think too that you would think that they if they're not fighting like other males would, right? That maybe it happens that way in the wild, right? Yeah. Like multiple males, like we were saying earlier, you put two chondro males together, they'll a lot of times they fight.
They do, and corrales do the same thing, and a lot of pythons fight, a lot of boas fight, but I've never put two male emeralds together. Have you, Ryan?
I thought about it with that Miss Willie male to see if that would get
it going.
But I was just too terrified to do it. I just thought, man, if I stick him with this male and he gets his ass kicked, I'm gonna be so.
Either end is nasty when you see teeth those sides and spurs those sides, like and you see what it's like pulling an emerald off a branch, pulling two up.
Yeah, you don't. Oh, that's terrible.
Marshall, have you tried putting two males with a female?
I've never done it. Now I've put like the shed of a male in with the pair to see if it did anything. Honestly, I don't remember. I don't think so. But I've never tried to put. I've always heard they would tear each other up. So I've always been too scared to try.
I remember doing that years ago, like 20, maybe 30 years ago, putting a shed of a male Amazon tree boa in with another one. It did nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen that. Have you, Ryan? Have you ever put sheds in and seen kind of a change in activity?
I think with a carpet python once it got.
Of a carpet python, Jesus
it
Christ!
Acted like it wanted to fight, but there was nobody there to fight. So.
But with a carpet python male, you just need to say the word male, and it'll start fighting with itself.
Yeah.
But what?
The Popwins would fight like crazy.
Oh,
they would.
Oh, really?
They would battle, and same with the Aussie olives will battle.
Really?
Yep.
Like battle, like wrestle, or like teeth.
It starts off wrestling, but if you leave it too long, it turns into trying to kill each other.
But they're amazing in it. So this past year, Ryan gave me a Darwin carpet a number of years ago, and Nick gave me a Darwin carpet, and then another individual gave me a pair of albino Darwins. And they were with a friend of mine because of the move, and he'd kind of lost track of which one is which. They're all the same size, right? So we thought, this is the male, this is the female. And so once we put two together, within seconds, those things were like, literally, it was take one out and the door opened. And before the head of that snake got in the cage, this other male was right at it and they started fighting. And, like milliseconds, I was amazed by it. I was like, oh, no, that's the male. And we switched it around. And it's amazing how carpets are really tuned into that whole process. But I've never tried it with emeralds, and
I had Amazons fight.
I've had Amazons fight as well.
Yeah, they'll wrestle.
Yeah, but they're more wobbly, and you can take them apart because they're more like floppy and kind of
Yeah, you're not as worried about catching a tooth with that one.
Yeah. I gotta say, the only fighting I've dealt with was, like I said, pairing those two females that fucking went after each other. And then even recently this year, I have a psychotic monoquery chondro fucking, and the male's the same way. And I just all I did was walk past them, and one bit the other, and they just started tumbling on the ground. And I just, Bill Stiegel says he just turns the lights off and walks out. I can't do that. Like I fucking freak out. Like, and so tearing those motherfuckers apart is probably one of the worst things ever. But apparently, I guess putting them underwater is what you need to do, or isn't there?
Well, you do that until they stop moving. Once they stop moving, then they separate. They float back to the top again.
The water doesn't really help. I've tried that before.
A little hand sanitizer at the edge of the
Hand
mouth.
sanitizer.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Hand sanitizer. I've heard vodka does the trick.
The other one I saw people doing is biting the tail of the snake.
Oh,
Oh, I've heard that too. Yeah.
I would never do that to an emerald or a condor.
No.
Fuck that.
No, no thanks.
Yeah, some brutal shit, man. But you know, kind of going back, I want to talk about the anaconda phase, you know, because that's obviously something I've had success with. But you know, obviously from what you can see, that's just a regular northern emerald tree boa, just differently looked, right?
So yeah, so I think, you know, we still really don't know anything about the genetics of emeralds. We don't know, because there are three clear phenotypes. There's the patternless, like the true patternless, just green, no blotches, no nothing. They might have the odd little white dot here and there on the scale, but they're just pure green. The other ones are the anaconda phase, so they're the green with the dark blotches that look like anaconda blotches. And then you get the regular kind of wild type, even though they're all wild type, the one where we know with the white. And then, of course, you got the ones with the white dots in the back of the head and so on. But we don't really understand what's happening with the heritability of those, because you see people breeding patternless to patterned and getting some patternless or some anaconda to patterned. And you get some anaconda, you get some pattern, and so on. What we don't see is the back crosses occurring. Ryan, with his breeding this past week, it was a green female baby that you had, and you bred to a wild caught male where you don't know the color of that as a baby, but you got 2 green and 2 red.
Yeah.
So that's suggesting a simple. It's probably a simple recessive trait for those, I would think, right?
I wonder. I mean, over the years, I've obviously, you know, having green babies is not new. I've seen it a few times over the years, but for me to think that it's recessive, the odds that male would be a het based on how many we've seen, that seems unlikely to me, because
but there's just
although we see it, it's not crazy common.
Well, I've had it in crosses.
Right, in all of the captive breeding of northerns that I've seen a pretty healthy number of green babies.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think
I've seen it over the years, but I don't, you know,
it's not massively common. And what I haven't seen is a litter of green, just all green babies.
Or
green
basins, right?
I've seen green basins.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah. I think I've seen. I think did Ed not have a green basin a couple of years ago? Maybe
I don't remember. I had never seen a green.
I don't know.
Because we've seen patternless basins, right? So, and you've seen anaconda phase basins.
Well, I've seen the HQ, that Harley Quinn basin.
Yeah, the line. Yeah,
there's also. I've never seen a basin without one.
Yeah, I'll find the pictures. There's pictures of anaconda phase basins as well in the wild, and I think patternless in the wild.
What you're saying is, Ryan Young, you're willing to put an anaconda phase to a basin?
I wouldn't hardly.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to.
I will if somebody sends.
I know you will, but I want this guy to do something people. I want Ryan to fucking cross over for once, man. That's all I want.
For twice.
I've been there before. I couldn't live with myself.
It'd be great content for sure.
Well, you couldn't live with yourself for like 24 hours, and then you'd just fall in love with the babies, and then that's it.
I would make a shirt that says "Never Meet." I would make a shirt with Ryan's face on it, and it says underneath "Never meet your heroes."
I shouldn't be anybody's hero. Let's start with that.
Yeah, I know you know, but at the end of the day, bro, come on, motherfuckers who start to do homework on you, you become their heroes very quick. I'm just saying, you got a lot of species under your belt, my guy.
And then you meet him and you get really disappointed really quickly.
No, dude, I take that back. No, hell no. I would
awesome.
say
I love this guy.
Ryan Young is even better in person for sure.
He is.
Dude, he's fucking comical. You would never believe how funny this guy is in person.
The things I've seen this guy do with a jar with pickled snakes in it, I swear to God. You know?
Hey, man, what happens at the museum stays at the
museum.
museum.
Say nothing.
Got it. But okay, you know, let's kind of talk about the day you pick up some basins and how would you like that to work out? Like, let's kind of paint a scenario here, you know, where everything works out as far as you being ready for space and, you know, maybe the inquiry is perfect. Like, what would be the way you'd want to come into get into basins after having all these other boa species under your belt?
So I've got a couple of friends that are expecting litters this year. So I'm probably going to pick up a pair or a trio at the end of the year, or somewhere at the end of the summer. But it's just the same as every other northern, you know, like captive bred, keep them in the typical kind of setup. I use these kind of, I think Rubbermaid made them. They were like kind of blue gasket lids. You know,
I have that. Yeah, yeah.
They're awesome, right? Yeah, really good, right? I drilled holes in the sides, put in multiple branches, did the same thing, right? Just as I mentioned earlier on about wild caught. Arboreal water bowl, I get them from that reptileperch.com. That guy, David Brahms.
Yep.
Awesome. Those things are fantastic. And I just put in multiple perches and leave them to it. And again, I think people overthink things. You know, there's no reason, as long as you've got thermostatically controlled setups that have got the ability for an animal, and especially at that size, they need to be able to thermoregulate. Then I think that I don't think there's any reason why you need to overthink things. You know, I think people do.
I mean, yeah. I mean, but see, here's the thing: like, there's people who are born overthinkers, like myself. But there's people who aren't really overthinkers, but are put in a position where it's easy to overthink things, right? So it's kind of it's almost.
Well, we are because of the internet. We are because of Facebook. Because everybody tells us what to do.
Nailed it.
Right? It's because
it's overwhelming.
Because they know, and even though they've never kept anything but a corn snake, they know how you should be keeping your basin in your bioactive setup, right?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, yeah. I love the friends and mentorship that I have. I will say definitely Ryan Young has said things to me that I wish I didn't hear. But then there was a point where I'm glad I heard it, you know, only because Ryan, like I know you, a lot of your other friends, you wish success on a lot of your friends in this game. And I know that you only speak from your own experience and I learned that firsthand this year with the fucking panels. I will say the quote of the year is "fuck those panels" by Ryan Young.
I love panels, by the way, Ryan.
Listen, got to know how to use them. You better know how to use them. That's all I got to say. Just because, good.
Because they work in my environment doesn't mean they'll work in yours.
Yes, that's true.
But they work great in mine.
Well, I could get them to work. I just didn't like all of the effort it took to make them work.
It's a lot of effort, and there's a lot of room for error.
Well, hashtag Ryan Young lazy. Right, so.
Man, I'll tell you what, you know, if you look at my evolution as a keeper, I was like big time, everything tech, crazy. And the older I get and the longer I do this, I've tried to minimize down to where it's just so simple, stupid now.
He has a small box with a candle in it now, and that actually heats his animals.
Only if you use a terracotta pot. Gotta have a heat sink. I'm not a savage.
His are all steam heated. They've got little pipes that go through the whole system. It's like ancient Rome.
I'm just back to a simple timer and a ceramic heat emitter. It's so simple, stupid. You can't.
Do you not find that they dry things out more? So I used to use ceramic heaters back in Ireland, and they would dry enclosures out really quickly, more so than heat panels.
No, man, I call panels, man. They make jerky snakes. It's too much. It's too big.
Well,
I think, but listen, like Warren said,
maybe your panel's too big. Maybe you need to go for a smaller panel.
Yeah, 120 watt maybe is a little much.
Hey man, I've given what I was given. All right, I had to learn how to use it.
Hey, no, but okay. On the topic of that,
what did this disintegrate into?
They shouldn't.
It's reminding me of Hawaii again.
We should go back.
They should invent. They should invent a lower wattage panel though. That would be ideal.
There's like a 28 watt or something like that. There, like a 20 watt. There's a small panel.
I thought 40 was.
But again,
they need a 4-inch by 4-inch panel, not a freaking.
Well, the thing is, it's all based on your room, right? It's all based on, people think it's got to be based on the side of the enclosure. It's not. It's based on the side on your room characteristics. So if your room's warm, you don't need a big heat panel.
No. Yeah, my room's.
If your room's cold, you need a decent heat panel, and therefore you accommodate that with, larger water bowls, more damp substrate, that kind of thing to increase humidity and so on. But you then need to counteract that with better humidity or better ventilation to allow that to because the problem is with with heat and humidity becomes bacterial growth and respiratory infections and so on. So you need to balance this whole process. So I think that's an issue with heat panels or with any heating system. You need to think about how much do I need for my room. And people don't think about that.
I forget about the tree monitor breeder who had the idea of buying one of those ventilation fans that you could buy off the internet. Like it's like these little circulation fans, right?
Computer fans, yeah.
And I tried sharing it with my friends here. And of course, Ryan Young fucking bullies the shit out of me and tells me how much of a like irrelevant fucking tool that is to have inside your enclosure because it's not really ventilation because there's nothing sucking air out. But do you think it would help though to have some sort of airflow that is circulating inside the enclosure, or is it kind of like not necessary?
I think if you've got ventilation in your enclosure,
convection,
and you have a fan or multiple fans going in your room, to keep air moving in the room,
right?
Then you're gonna get turnover in your enclosure,
which is enough.
If you go into your enclosure and you got large water bowls and you're misting the animals and so on, or not, but you're misting the enclosure and you're seeing condensation building up really badly, then it's telling you there's no ventilation or there's insufficient ventilation, right? If you're doing all that and you're not seeing that and the animals are still shedding perfectly, then there's sufficient ventilation and you're getting oxygen, you're getting exchange of that air. So again, it goes back to what I said early on. What works for you doesn't work for Ryan or Marshall or me or whatever. It's entirely your room, and that's people don't seem to realize that they got to dial in their room. How many fans does it take? Does it take fans? Does it require what says a heat panel or no heat panel or ceramic or a light bulb to heat their enclosure? It's entirely up to them, But it takes time to really build up that understanding of your room. And when you move that to somewhere different, it could be around the corner or it could be halfway across the US or the world. It could be, they can change things dramatically.
I moved my room 20 feet and it's completely different just from the construction differences.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great. Because of the whole environment inside the whole building, I would assume.
Yeah. My original building, had just the slab that was poured on grade, no insulation. It was insulated with just fiberglass bad insulation drywall, and I couldn't dump enough humidity into that room, and the floor was always really cold, and it shares a wall with the new. I extended off the back of the building, but the cement's insulated, everything's spray foamed, has PVC walls, and I mean the humidity is 75-80% with doing very little. I run a humidifier in there, but just like I don't have to fill it every day. It's like every 2 weeks I have to fill it.
And the crazy thing is that for some species in that room, it might have no effect. For ball pythons, it might mean nothing. They'll just keep breeding and doing their thing. But for a carpet python or a children's python or a corallus, it can totally change the whole kind of dynamics of how they work. So again, it's not just room characteristics; it's how the species react to those.
Okay, I think we could all agree right now, us being emerald keepers, pretty sure. When it comes to having a baby or a juvenile emerald tree boa, over water for the win, right? Like that's kind of almost like a security thing as far as good sheds, good shits, because I've always experienced younger emerald tree boas that aren't over water. They have problems shedding. They have problems taking shits. What's your take on emerald tree boa babies or yearlings being over water and that kind of being the safe bets? And let's go all around the table on this.
Hold on a second. My wife is now harassing me. Right. My issue is I keep them all over water. So the reason being is that they dehydrate really fast. And I think that you can lose them really fast as well, like rainbow boas. I think you can destroy them a lot, so I think you need to keep them over water.
You keep rainbow boas over water also?
No, but I keep them on high humidity.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm going to tell my wife to bring me a beer. Gemma, can you bring me a beer?
I thought your wife was like, hurry up. I thought your wife was like, hurry up, motherfucker. Like, we got things to do.
No, she's just going to bed. She has to get up to go to work at 6:30. I don't. I can work from my office tomorrow.
Awesome.
I keep, but I think humidity is really important for baby emeralds and baby any corallus and any of those epicrates, even baby anacondas. They're all in that branch. They all dehydrate really fast, and I think that with my emeralds and my Amazons and Trinidads and so on, I keep them over water for about the first year, and it's, the pain in the ass is they defecate a lot, so you're constantly kind of tipping it out. But when it's just water, and I keep a couple of extra containers, so I use David Bram's, those little perch kind of things that he does, where I can just lift them out of one, put them into the next, and I just use that kind of system. I find that whenever I just keep them over damp paper towel, they don't seem to react as well. They dehydrate a little bit faster.
And Ryan or Marshall, whoever wants to go next, I know Marshall's over water for sure. I've seen it. Ryan, are you over water as well?
No.
Wow, of course not. But again,
man, Ryan keeps his over sandpaper. Ryan keeps over sandpaper at 104 degrees.
You saw baby emerald drown itself in water?
No, I've seen adult emeralds drown themselves in like a quarter of an inch of water. So
same.
I've seen
the
that.
thought of putting a baby over water just fucking, I wouldn't sleep.
They're not as short bus.
Yeah, no, it does bother me. But I don't mean
the short bus snakes.
I don't mean like an inch of I don't mean like an inch of water. I mean like a centimeter of water, half a centimeter of water. It's just enough to create that layer where there's enough surface to allow for evaporation to occur.
Yeah, I'll say this: that I don't keep the Amazons on it because I've found that a lot of times they will go, and those are the ones that babies I've had the most problems with as far as like shedding. Keeping them over water, I've still had bad sheds, but if I keep them on a wet paper towel, like if it's just water in the bottom, they'll never go to the ground. But
so do you find that they are having bad sheds, or what's the deal?
Yeah.
So the other way to do that, so I've bred Amazons probably about 25, maybe 30 times. And the way I found that whenever you had those ones that had bad sheds, I would get these little kind of butter, the cartons you get butter in, the plastic cartons you get butter in.
Yeah. Your deli cup?
I would use those. I suppose you could use the deli cup. Yeah, that would be the obvious kind of difference. Cut a hole in the side, fill it full of sphagnum moss, and put that in the enclosure. And just like rainbow boas, they would go in there when they needed that higher humidity.
Okay.
And come out and they'd shed perfectly. And I would have in the same litter, because I've had Amazon litters where I've had 24 babies in a litter, and I've had a subset of them that didn't shed the way they should do. And I put those little cartons into it, and that sorted them out. And after a couple of those shed cycles, they just kind of got back on track.
What's your ambient humidity running, Warren?
I've got no idea. I don't measure that stuff. Yeah, I would imagine that in Oklahoma, it was about -7. But here, I think I looked at the average. The humidity in Blacksburg right now is like 55%. So I would imagine my basement's probably sitting about 60, 65.
Well, our humidity here is like 10%.
Yeah,
I would imagine. Yours is.
But my room is built well, so it's like 80-85%.
Right. I was going to say, without a well-built room, how you would breed anything but carpet pythons. I have no idea.
Bread line.
Almost. Look, this is on a good day. Right. 41 is on a good day right here. Okay, now it's 44.
You got 40.
This is a really good day right here.
That's your humidity?
This is a really good day right here, by the way.
Well, that's what I was telling you about the panels. I said, look, man, I live more similar climate to you as far as humidity than these other guys here.
Yeah, I love heat panels. I love heat panels. I will tell that to everyone. Marshall, do you use heat panels or do you use ambient?
Yeah.
He loves them too.
See us guys, So.
But it's like Ryan said, demographics, everything. Me and him are on the same kind of fucking ordeal when it comes to humidity. You guys aren't.
That's exactly it. We cannot, and that's the biggest thing that annoys me about the hobby. We all assume that because what he did or what she did is what works, and it doesn't. It's what works for you works. Look at Mike. Look at Mike Stefani. Yeah. People kept saying you can't do this, you can't do that, and he did. He's done it better than anybody in the last 10 years that I know.
Dude,
So.
he nailed that shit, man. He really did.
And he
But
sold them all as well.
of course, the fuck. Oh, dude,
You know,
ship
the
it.
guy's
Mike,
now he's
give him
picking up his
credit.
new car tomorrow. So
He has 9 kids. God damn. Fuck. He needs that money. Give that money to him. All right, listen, wrap up question time. I'll go first, and then whoever wants to go next. Fine. But we haven't really talked about, your success with establishing babies, because I know there's so many different angles and, approaches to, doing feeding trials. I'm kind of figuring myself right now with the chondros, but if we focus on emeralds here, go around the horn, what has worked for you, Warren, when it comes to getting a baby emerald out of the mom, and obviously post shed, not pre shed, right? As far as offering a meal goes, but how soon?
superheated.
Okay, superheated, but how soon after it's first shed?
Yeah, it's as soon as they shed. But I do superheated and at about 5:30 or 6 a.m. What you'll see if you look at your emeralds, their activity patterns, you'll find that most of the time during the day they're obviously perched and they're coiled up. If you go into them at night, once you start seeing activity, they're moving around. Once you get to the point where if you go at them enough, if you bug them enough at night and go and check on them, you'll see there's going to be a point in the time when they're sitting with their head down looking for food.
Yeah.
And for me and my stuff, that tends to be between 4 a.m. and about 6 a.m. So I go into mine with superheated kind of hopper mice, defrost.
Real quick, how do you defrost your mice? Do you put it in a bag? Do you put it directly in the water?
I put them in a bag. No, I put them in a bag on just like a Ziploc bag, close it, leave it to defrost at room temperature, and about half an hour before I want to feed them, I threw it onto a heat mat, and I just let it warm up.
In the bag still.
Gets nice and steamy and nasty.
Okay.
And then I take it out and offer it because they're not wet. They're not they're still dry. And at that point when their head's down, it's normally they can track it. You don't just hit them. You just track it in front of them,
right,
and they go for it. So for example, Mike Stefani sent me one of those babies as a gift. He didn't need to, and he sent me one a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, he didn't offer me shit, by the way.
I didn't want to say, but he sent me one which he didn't need to do, and it was really, really such a nice gift. And I received it. Then I went on vacation for 2 weeks, so I came back and literally, I think I sent him a message. I think I fed it yesterday, and I went in with just a single fluff or hopper mouse, defrosted it, and offered it about 6 a.m. and it nailed it. Wow. And I sent him a message. And I was like, right, there you go, Mike. Defrost hopper mouse. I've never had a problem with that, But I think the thing is that people try to feed again during the day, or depending. I always follow what the animal's doing. I think with some animals you can go in and bug them and pester them and they'll take. But I think with emeralds they need to be in that hunting mode to really say, right, I'm ready to take it.
Yeah.
Some of them you can pester and they'll take it, but I think the ones that are really with their head down, ready to go, just like adults. We talked about that before, MJ. Where you see it with imports, only whenever that head is really pointing down at night, you really see that's whenever they're really ready to take.
Yeah.
Babies are the same, I think.
Yeah.
And if they don't take that, then offer a live hopper mouse. Don't think about pink rats and stuff like that. They're not active. You need something that's moving around and has got a heat signature that's going to move around for them.
And either Marshall or Ryan, who wants to go next as far as what's worked for you as far as establishing emerald tree boa babies?
I've always just used live hoppers. That's worked most of the time. I've had some, second move is to go to superheated, frozen thawed. And then depending on the species, Amazons like them. Sometimes they'll like them brained. I haven't had that luck with emeralds. Emeralds, I really haven't had much luck with any of the scenting or anything like that. I've heard the hamsters, Siberian hamsters, work well to get them going, just because they're small and they move around a lot. A rat pup or rat fuzzy doesn't move around very much.
Yeah.
Try to water putting them in a deli cup right underneath the perch. That works sometimes. And then I've got some that nothing works.
But I'll say this is also, and we kind of touched upon this earlier. I've had Russian Bergerac litters where, the first year that I produced them was an absolute nightmare getting them to feed. I scented with all X, Y, and Z. And the next year, they all took, 17 of them took defrosted rat pups that were just defrosted in a bag, the same way as I mentioned earlier. Every single one of them nailed it, and from the same parents, so snakes are something that's going to drive you around the bend. I'm sure. I don't know how Ryan. Well, I know how. I was going to say I don't know how Ryan's got any hair left, but apparently he lost a lot. But now it's coming back again. Apparently his breeding is now a lot more easier. But some of the snakes that you breed, Ryan, have got to be really tricky to get feeding. I've just had these children's pythons.
The first things I bred were children's and spotteds and chondros. So I guess after 20 years, they don't seem that hard anymore. But
it's
wow.
Yeah,
nothing a Western skink can't fix.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have one.
You gotta have a skink
eastern part of the
somewhere.
U.S.
I'm sure you got an Eastern skink that'll do the trick.
I need to find someone with an Eastern skink or a Western skink that can send it to me. Yeah.
You don't need the whole skink. You just need the tail.
I just need a tail. I just need a bit of tissue. Yeah.
That's the magic trick right there.
So how many tails do you have, Ryan? I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, no, you go out field herping, catch a blue tail, you just pop that tail off, let the lizard go. Take that tail,
grow it back.
But what about with yours, Ryan? With your basins you had before, did you have any?
Well,
issues
I guess I have
feeding?
to preface it with I don't have a ton of experience. I had a small basin litter. I think it was 6, and 4 of them ate straight away live hopper mice, no problem. 2 of them wouldn't eat nothing. I assist fed them for I think anywhere from like 6 to 10 times. And then I finally discovered that if I just pissed them off enough, I could get them to eat. And then once they started eating, that was good. The northern.
Here's a question. When did you start assist feeding?
Probably, I would say it was probably at least 2 months after they had shed.
The reason I ask that is that from experience, I think that snakes can do well. They can survive a long time without feeding.
Yeah, but once
you start pissing them off, they go downhill really fast. Their metabolism kind of uses up whatever they've got.
Wow.
So if they don't start feeding within a couple of times, you need to start assist feeding.
Yeah. I didn't try pissing them off until after I'd been assist feeding them, and I was trying to get them to go from, because I noticed when I started assist feeding them, I would just put the hopper in their mouth, kind of squeeze their head down, and they really got to where they wouldn't even struggle anymore.
Are you aggressive? You actually held the head closed?
I just kind of pinch it and then let them go. Just really bury those teeth in there.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Right. Wow.
And then I noticed after like 3 or 4 times, they would kind of start biting it, and then after like 6 times, they were practically biting the damn thing like they knew the drill or something. But then they still wouldn't eat a live one left in there, and they wouldn't eat a tease-fed one. So I had to start like really getting aggressive with them. And then when they finally tried to bite, then they switched real quick after that.
So the other thing is that whenever you had them doing that, did you kind of take a break from them for like a month and not offer them anything to see if they would get kind of hungry? And
yeah, I would do that. But it took a couple times to break them where they would finally start eating. So I don't have a ton. Like I said, that was the experience with the basins. The northerns, I've got even less experience. The mother of this litter, I got right when she was born. And she just started straight away on hoppers. And she was little, like she was that was the smallest emerald I'd ever seen at that point. And
emeralds are tiny, but it's funny, like getting this one from Mike again, I'm like, I produced these a bunch of times and I forget how small they are whenever you get them. Because they grow fast whenever they've had a couple of meals.
Right.
Yeah. But then the 2 northerns that I produced last year, one of them is a complete pain in the ass, and the other one will eat anything you throw in there. But the funny thing is their mom was very picky on when she would eat, like you were talking about. All my other emeralds will eat any time of day, morning, noon, night, whatever you feed them, they'll eat. And this snake was such a pain in the ass. She would only eat like at dusk, you know, like she was a real. And one of her babies is a total pain in the ass.
Really?
Yep.
I-
But
I-
I have
I-
noticed he, for whatever reason, or she, I don't know. If I kind of beat it up with a rat pinky, I hate feeding rat pinkies just for the same reasons we talk about with chondros and mouse pinkies. But if I get it to just, it won't bite them, but it'll kind of grab, grip them with its body, and then if I shut the door, it'll eat it.
It'll eat it, yeah.
Yeah, but I've noticed that so it's on its third rat pinky, and I could get it to eat hopper mice, but man, it was a struggle. Like you had to practically beat the shit out of the thing before.
Why do we do this? Why do we do this? Why do we do this?
Oh man, we're just a glutton for punishment.
We should keep corn snakes.
Oh yeah, no, that was way easier.
At least we're not sticking our fingers in Emerald Tree Boa's mouse and seeing what the fucking side effect is or anything like that, So
They're like vipers; they'll get you with that side hook. Sometimes.
Oh yeah,
I'm going to avoid that one there.
Yeah.
I had an Amazon tree boa nab me a couple of weeks ago, and it's the first time I've been bitten by an Amazon in 20 years, and I was like, oh yeah, I didn't enjoy that.
No. Your rushy male got me pretty good a couple weeks ago.
How big is it now?
He's not that big. They did not want to switch to haired food.
Oh really?
Yeah, like they ate once they started eating fully haired rodents, they didn't seem to like that.
Oh wow.
The male especially. The female will eat anything now, but the male, I think he went off food for a couple months because I think he was wanting to breed. I didn't realize she was probably big enough to go.
Yeah,
and
that's what I see with females. I just sent out a pair of emerald or of Ruschenberger to a friend tonight, and I said, look, the female is like 7 feet, the male is like 5 feet. The female eats medium to large rats. The male eats adult mice.
Yeah,
and he's like, well, I'll switch him over to rats, and I was like, you feed whatever the male will take because it doesn't matter. Just keep him alive and he's fine.
Yeah.
The female will bang medium to large rats every time.
Right.
The male's just like, I just need enough to keep you alive, just barely enough.
That's what he likes.
I just need
I
enough
wasn't.
fat,
I wasn't taking into account that he was probably reproductively active, and I was like, why is he all of a sudden not eating forever?
Yeah.
And then I was teasing him, trying to get him to eat, and he fucking bit me.
Yeah, you do that, and with Amazons, with Ruschenberger, with all that emeralds, you hit them behind the neck. They're like carpet pythons. You hit them behind the neck.
Yeah.
And you get that wee kind of, and then finally they take it and you're like, fuck, But that's why I've always got them to go. Here's the other thing about keeping snakes in the UK and Ireland. You couldn't feed live, so you had to find every single way you could think of to feed defrost.
No.
So superheated. So all those little, drop them in water, put them on a heat mat. Hit them with a hair dryer. Yeah, I went through that whole process. So it's so much nicer. I've lived in the US now nearly 20 years. The fact that I now need to find a local live mouse supplier because, the ease whenever I was in Oklahoma and in North Carolina of finding a person that had live mice where I could just, had litter of boas, throw in live mice for the first couple of feeds. And then it was just no problem, it makes it so much easier. But for all of my corrales, I've never fed in all of the litters. And I said, I've had 25, 30 litters of Amazons. I've had, I don't know, 7 litters of Ruschenbergeri, bunch of litters of Caninus. I've never fed live. It's always been defrost.
Damn.
And they've all taken off.
Who's next? Wrap up question, Marshall or Ryan?
So where do you see So you're like all of us. You have multiple different species, a lot of different things. You see it staying that way, or do you like the arboreal stuff the best, or keep a variety?
I think it's a great question.
Going.
I think it's a great question. I love diversity. So in my collection, I've got womas, children's pythons, spotted pythons, carpet pythons, caramel albino shorttails. I've got what else have I got?
Ball pythons? Ball pythons?
Darwins. Fuck off. I did Darwins. I love ball pythons, but I love tri-stripes, and I don't have any. Darwin's, and Ryan's sending me some really cool ones next week. And then boas, I got Sigma, Imperator, and then a whole bunch of different corrales: Grenadensis, Annulatus, Caninus, Rischenbergeri, 3 different localities. I love having the diversity, because I think if I went into a room and it was all just ball pythons or all just boas, and I've got desert king snakes, if I went into a room and I've got redfoot tortoises, if I went into a room it's all just the same, I think I would kind of get bored.
Yeah.
I love having the diversity of the stuff, and this year, breeding children's pythons for the first time, spotted pythons for the first time in 20-something years, womas for the first time. We have Darwin's carpets from last year that we produced, and whatever, Brazilians again. I love all that kind of stuff. Again, for me, it's a hobby. It's not a business. It's not a job. I don't have a logo. I don't have a, all that kind of stuff. It's just for fun. And I think people that have diversity in their collection sometimes get a bit more out of it because they're not thinking of that. I think a lot of people have got into this hobby thinking about that big, that triangle, that pyramid of, I'm going to make money, instead of thinking, why am I into this and what's really cool about it? And that's why I love talking to people like Ryan and Nick Mutton, and they're really just immersed in this as a hobby as well. And just don't think about it as how much money is this snake worth. It's more of, holy shit, we've got this snake and we didn't have it 30 years ago and we bred it this time, or what else could we get that could really augment this? And I think diversity is just something that is a really important thing for people in the hobby. Marshall, you've got it with what you've got, right? You span the spectrum from ball pythons through the basins, through the albino chondros.
Colubrids, yeah, got bull snakes,
you got it all.
Transpicus, rat snakes.
All right. Hey, Warren, my turn. Okay, now it's my turn. I'm waiting.
All right, MJ, go ahead. Come on. Okay.
You
and
want
MJ, awesome. But MJ also, MJ does it even more because he goes the whole lizard spectrum.
Yeah, lizards.
He doesn't just take one. He's got the whole spectrum of the varanids. The blue tree monitors, the green tree monitors, the yellow tree monitors, everything that I think are off. I would love to have those, dude. Yeah. Through to the emeralds, through to the green trees. He's got ball pythons, but he's also got white lips, and.
Hey, Marsh has ball pythons.
And you know what?
Both these guys have ball pythons. Hold on.
And
both these guys have ball pythons.
I would recommend. I think in the next couple of years, I'll probably have ball pythons again.
Come on, thank you.
And here's the reason. And there's 3 ball pythons I want.
Trade.
I want tri-stripes.
Damn,
I think ultramels are great.
Damn, that's Marshall.
And I want the patternless that Dave and Tracy Barker have.
Oh,
and that's it.
I can't help you. So
that's the only 3. Patternless.
I think he's dropping hints for that box next week.
Yeah, Ryan's got the tri-stripe ultraman. He's probably got like 10 of them.
But I think those things. I think ball pythons are awesome. But and I had I had like 80 or 100 of them a couple of years ago. I just couldn't sell them because people don't know me for ball pythons, and I was producing some really cool stuff, but people don't know me for ball pythons.
Yeah.
But but I think diversity is just it sells it all. I just, why would you want to be stuck with one thing and with snakes? I think there's so much really cool thing. They all have their different behaviors. Like my womas will eat my fingers every time I put my hands near them. My Enteresia will eat all of my fingers. My Brazilians will do the same thing. But they're all different, and it's just cool. I would be sick. I would be bored if I just had one thing.
I agree. All right,
so
Ryan.
Sorry, that's a very elongated answer but I think diversity is a really great thing.
What do you got? What do you got for a wrap-up question, Ryan?
Well, I've known Warren a while, and I guess I can't remember if we've ever talked about field herping. So are you into field herping or not?
I taught a tropical biology course in Costa Rica for 10 years.
Okay.
And one of the things I told students was whenever we go there, so part of the course was in a lecture, every week. And then I would take students to Costa Rica for 10 days over Thanksgiving. And we went to a place called La Selva Biological Station, which is in the northeast of Costa Rica. It's about 30 kilometers from Nicaragua. And just an exceptional research station. But I would tell students that at night, once you finish dinner, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, it's dark. I'm going into the rainforest. So we had the way that station was set up was you had a research station a cafeteria, all that kind of stuff, and a suspension bridge you got across, and then you were in the rainforest, pretty much. And they had a massive amount of trails. You know, you could walk back. There was about 10 kilometers worth of trails you could walk back into and walk around. You know, so it's a lot to walk. And I'd say, look, we're going in, and I'm coming back at about 2 in the morning. So if you want to come with me, you're cool. But what I can guarantee is you're going to see more mammals, more reptiles, more insects than if you go out tonight, than if you go out during the day. And I would always have a troop of students, even not just our own students, but other students from other universities that would come out with me, and we go out and we saw an incredible diversity of animals, angulated tree boas, numerous colubrids, fertile ants out the wazoo. You know, you were guaranteed to see it. You know, half a dozen fertile ants every night. I love field herping. Absolutely.
So when we go to Sao Paulo, look for those Cropana.
Dude, I spoke to someone recently about that. I'm trying to think who it was. Ketzel Dwyer.
Yeah, okay.
I spoke to Ketzel about it, and he said that getting there, the paperwork is really difficult. Because I would love to.
Because I wonder if they're as hard to find if just nobody's looking.
So, well, you know what's happened, right? You saw the reason that, you know, so they were thought to be extinct.
Yeah.
And then 7 or 8 years ago, all of a sudden, two appeared. And I think in the last couple of years, there's been 5 or 10 that have appeared.
Yeah.
And it's because the research group that are doing it started putting out posters that said, if you see this snake, and where they're primarily finding it, it's crossing roads.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, of course, arboreal snakes don't just live in trees. They have to move to get from one tree to the next if there's no habitat for them to get between the, you know, to cross branches. The shitty thing about that whole project is that I tried to email them and offer them transponders, and I got no response. They started like taping like transponders to the snakes to see what they were doing. I'm like, it's not going to work. Like, you know, with Ari Flag, I sent Ari a microchip reader and a bunch of microchips. So whenever he goes to Indonesia, he can tag snakes and come back next year and find them again and scan them and so on. I offered the same thing with these people in Sao Paulo. They never responded. Because I would love to see those kind of data to get generated to find those. I
don't know any field herpers that have ever even gone and looked.
No, dude, Crapani, that's a species that I dream about because we don't even know what the babies look like.
No.
We know what the species looks like from maybe less than 10 in history. In history, we have no idea what a baby Corallus crapani looks like.
Well, I'm assuming you were like me
unreal.
with that video of that one, like sitting there striking and stuff. You're like, oh my God, it's alive. I don't ever see black and white photos.
Did you see the video with a pair in a cage?
I didn't see that.
And they released the pair?
Oh, shit.
And I'm like,
why the fuck would you do that?
No. We have no idea. And that's crazy. But it's like what we've talked about. It's like Bismarck scrubs. We don't know what a Bismarck scrub baby looks like. We don't know what half these things look like, you know. And for me, that's part of the interest. That's part of the things that really keeps me fascinated by what we do, you know, and what I do. And even with everything we breed now, like look how many cool Amazon tree boa babies have been produced. Like Marshall, you produce some freaking insane baby Amazons.
Yeah,
you know?
very cool. Got very genetics and
you know, look at
MORPHs.
look at the locality stuff that Ryan's producing in terms of green trees and stuff. Like they're just out of this world. And again, it's because there's so few people actually breeding these and thinking about it in that context. And let's line breed, let's selectively see what we can get out of these here. And I think we're about to see an explosion of really cool animals.
Nobody makes a better green snake than Ryan Young. That's all I got to say. Yeah,
but nobody's allowed to buy them.
Well, I'm saying what I just said. Ryan smiled. That was such a compliment right now. What I said to Ryan, because it's all about a snake, a green snake that is called a green snake being green to Ryan, and that's what it comes down to. No,
I don't
but
know how this guy survives. Like, I don't know how he lives because he doesn't sell. I don't know if he sells anything. He's given me so many snakes. It's ridiculous, you know.
Dude, hey, to think about how good this guy is at breeding. If he wanted to be a designer hog or a trendy hog, he would be the worst if he wanted to be, but he's not. Like, he's really doing his thing. And Ryan, I give you shit, Ryan, but I really commend you on how much you fucking stick to what you love and you do what you do because you love it. That's it. You know what I mean?
I also think it's a trust. I also think it's a trust fund baby. So
I wish. I wish, mommy.
Oh my god,
man.
that was a good firework end to this epic podcast. I want to say 2 hours went by too quick, and this won't be the only time. You're no stranger to Trap Talk. I love having you.
I've been here before.
Yes, you have, and you'll be back. Trust me.
I appreciate it, buddy.
I appreciate you. We just had just under 80 people tapped in during this episode. So what do you have to say to all the people coming in tonight, showing you all the love and respect?
Hey, thanks a lot. You know, it's always great to be invited on, and you know, I sent you that message, or you sent me a message earlier on. You know, it's like I can talk about anything for any length of time for with good people. So, and it's great meeting Marshall. You know, so
I know.
I've always been an admirer of Marshall's kind of work. So it's great finally kind of getting to say hi, at least virtually. And it's always great seeing Ryan, you know. So I did send him a message earlier on not to screw this up. So
And Warren, I know you just got back from Florida with the family, but what's it going to take the family to Southern California, maybe to Disneyland or something? I don't know. Like, what
I'd love to come over. I'm actually planning. I've got some work to do at UC Berkeley.
Oh, nice.
At some point this year, and I was going to hit you up and see if I could call down and say hi.
Oh my God, that would be epic. That'd be iconic. Yeah, let me know.
So it'd be nice.
Only because, before this podcast started with you, I said how much I enjoy meeting you when we first met, and there was a couple.
We've had a blast at Tinley, or no, at Arlington, right? Yeah,
a couple times, yes. And I gotta say, man, I really respect who you are because of our relationship in person. Like, you're amazing, man, and I gotta say, I love having you be a part of almost any conversation that relates to reptiles that we talk about. But I can't wait to hang out with you again. That's all it comes down to.
No, we always have a blast. Like, we had a great time in Arlington.
Yeah.
Anytime we've hung out, so it's I love hanging out at reptile shows.
Yep.
So I love seeing friends, so anytime I can. And I will say that one of the best trips that I've had was with Ryan and Nick whenever we went to Hawaii like three years ago in our 40-hour epic turnaround trip, and we had a blast. And the funniest thing was the one thing about it, sorry to interrupt this whole thing, but we sat 3 in a row on a flight from was it San Francisco to Honolulu.
Yeah.
And we just talked snakes for whatever, was that like a 6-hour trip?
I can only imagine. Yeah.
And we just talked snakes, and it was so funny because at the end of it, we stood up and we're like at midnight. And this woman behind us, and she goes, "Jesus, you guys just talked snakes for like 6 hours."
Fucking geeks.
We were just nerding out for like 6 hours, just constantly back. And you know what? I think I love that. I think it's like any of the reptile shows. I get to talk snakes with friends, and I just always have a blast. And no, I love it. I think, well, if you don't like doing that, then why are you in it? So,
are you going to Daytona?
I was actually looking on a map last night, but it'd be a 9.5 hour drive. Are you going to Daytona?
I'm going. Wait, Marshall, are you end up going or not?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, we got one extra seat at our table.
You have to go, Warren.
What table?
We
have
to
find a room.
Dude, take Ryan's room. I don't give a fuck. I mean,
I got an extra bed if MJ doesn't take it.
I won't take it. I'll go back to my other plan if Warren comes down and takes that bed. Please, I would love for that to happen. Warren, go to Daytona, please, if you can.
Let me work out with the wife, but I think I might be able to at least get it. It's only a 9.5 hour drive. I can do that.
There and back.
You do that in your sleep.
I used to do 14.5 hour drive back and forth to Tulsa here. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, because the last time I was at Daytona was maybe 14 or 15 years ago. Whenever Dave Barker offered me 9 Timor pythons, they were adult.
Shit.
Whenever is the NASCAR bar still there? Remember the bar that had the NASCAR in front of it?
No, I don't know. I've only
They're-
been one.
Right. Well, there, Dave Barker at 3:30 in the morning offered. The bar was closing, and he said, "Well, we're not finished yet." He bought like 10 more beers, and we stood out, and he had them all on top of that NASCAR. It was me and him, and he had a copy of the Pythons of the World 2 book, and he signed it and gave it to a friend of mine who was like 10 years. Like his kid was like 10 years old, 12 years old, and then he offered me 9 adult Timor Pythons. I was like, that's a bit much, Dave. I love them, but that's a bit much. Yeah. He looked rough the next day.
Hey,
Yes, I'll look into it. So you're all going to Daytona.
We're good. Confirmed.
All right, I'm looking into it.
We got an extra seat at our dinner table. We were going to auction it off, but
No, fuck no, we're not. No, because
Right. I'll let you know. I'll let you know within
I
the week.
refuse for people to win that seat. I'll fucking won't go to that dinner. Okay.
That would be great.
Fuck.
Hang out
Not-
with you guys. That'd be awesome. You know,
Not into
We've-
white
we've
bitches
always
with
had fun.
cornrows. All right, listen, Warren. A pleasure. You're amazing. I hope Daytona goes down. If it doesn't, I don't give a fuck. I'll just bring you back on the show. We'll have a good time. But
Love it.
please go follow Boa Booth on Instagram because that's the most place you're active. You would say as far as
Yeah, it's pretty much the only one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll put the link to that Instagram in the description below. But enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much. Give it up for Dr. Booth. It's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it all. Thank you. Had a great night.
Good night,
Thanks
Warren.
a lot.
Appreciate it, buddy. Fuck yeah. Great episode. Awesome shit, fellas. I appreciate it. Hey, we could even recap this in person in a couple days. How awesome is that?
there you go.
Well, we're
Yeah.
I'll get to meet Marshall face to face after 20-something years.
I mean, we're gonna spend 4 days together.
Yes.
Hey,
Yes.
we'll
And-
figure it out real quick.
Hey. All I got to tell you is I'm hoping for that magic gecko, okay, because it means big things for Trap Fest if that's the case. But you guys are awesome. I appreciate all your participation. As always, Ryan, dude, you don't ever say no to me. Thank you so much. Every time I hit you up, you're down to come on the show, okay, because we all know the mayor takes a lot of trips and vacations, right,
Hey,
Marshall?
man, I always have a
That's
good
right.
time.
Yeah, man. And you know, can't wait to have you back on the next one. But please give it up for Ryan Young and, of course, Marshall Mendez, my man. Bro, I got my sandals ready to rock and roll when you roll up. It's going to be awesome. I can't fucking wait. But, guys, please go give him a follow. Molecular Reptiles and Red Mountain Herbs on Instagram. But give it up for Marshall Mendez and Ryan Young. It's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen.
See you guys in a few
See you in
days.
a couple
See you in a
days.
couple days, man. Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate everyone who tapped in tonight. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're reminded in about a couple weeks for that next Trap Talk Reptile podcast. Because guess what? I'm on vacation. That's right. I am signing off and I'm going to enjoy my time. Trap Fest 2024 is going down Thursday. I hope you guys have a good night. I'll see you on the next one. Episode 511's in the books and I'm out.